Chapter 1427. Yin Feng's aura was shocking. He had reached the peak of LV1 Martial Royal Realm. The Great Emperor's mystic realm had only been open for a dozen days and Yin Feng's cultivation had already reached the peak of LV1 Martial Royal Realm. However, it was not hard to understand. A genius like Yin Feng who had lived in the Yuan continent since he was young had reached the peak of the Martial Royal Realm. The reason why he had not broken through to the Martial Royal Realm was because he had been suppressing it to enter the Great Emperor's mystic realm. They had been suppressing it for too long and had accumulated too much. Once they broke through to the Martial Royal Realm, their cultivation would increase by leaps and bounds. It was normal for them to reach the peak of LV1 Martial Royal Realm in a dozen days. It would not take long for them to break through to LV2 Martial Royal Realm. Yin Feng unleashed his full strength to fight against Lu Ming. Dong! The two fists collided and a bell rang. However, the result was the same. Although Yin Feng had unleashed his cultivation, he was still no match for Lu Ming. He was completely suppressed by Lu Ming and was forced to retreat. Lu Ming did not even use the chaotic realm. He only used the dragon god's battle body and the hell suppressing skill. Although Lu Ming's spiritual body was the same as Yin Feng's, a low-tier spiritual body, Lu Ming had been trained by the world-refining Calamity Bell. There was a trace of chaotic qi in his body, which made Lu Ming's spiritual body stronger than an ordinary low-tier spiritual body. It was close to a medium-tier spiritual body. Boom! Boom! Lu Ming continued to throw out punches. He was like an invincible god of war, completely suppressing Yin Feng. Puff! Yin Feng's body shook violently. He kept retreating and spat out a mouthful of blood. The others were shocked. Yin Feng had an innate spiritual body. Now that he had evolved into a low-tier spiritual body, he was still no match for Lu Ming. Lu Ming, the young man from the desolate island, was so strong that it was beyond their imagination. What? Is this all you've got? Is this the source of your confidence? Don't you want to show me the difference between us? Lu Ming mocked. Yin Feng let out a beast-like growl. He was too sullen. He had been suppressed by Lu Ming when he was at the Martial Royal Realm. And Lu Ming spoke. At his spine, a blood-red light flashed. From his third bloodline, a strand of energy flowed into Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming's body was covered in a layer of blood-red light, and a boundless killing intent enveloped Yin Feng. Being shrouded by the endless killing intent, Yin Feng shuddered violently. Boom! Borrowing the power of his third bloodline, Lu Ming's strength greatly increased. When his fist collided with Yin Feng's fist again, a cracking sound rang out from Yin Feng's arm. His arm was completely deformed. Yin Feng let out a blood-curdling scream as he spat out a large mouthful of blood. Suppress! Lu Ming pressed down with his hand, and the phantom of the suppressing hell monument appeared on his arm, pressing down on Yin Feng. Bang! Yin Feng raised his arms and resisted with all his might. However, he was pressed down by Lu Ming's palm, causing Yin Feng to kneel down. With a thud, he knelt heavily on the ground in front of Lu Ming. Even if you want to beg for mercy, you don't need to be so courteous, do you? Lu Ming smiled faintly. Arg, I'm going to kill you. Yin Feng's eyes were red. He let out an angry roar and struggled frantically. Last time, he was stepped on by Lu Ming 9 times in a row. He had become the laughingstock of Dragon God Valley and was ridiculed by his competitors. Now, he was kneeling in front of Lu Ming. This was a great humiliation that he would never be able to wash away in his lifetime. Even if he were to rise up in the future and rule the world, this incident would be a stain in his life. He was furious, he roared, and he couldn't wait to tear Lu Ming into pieces. However, what welcomed him was Lu Ming's kick. Lu Ming lifted his leg and kicked out. The sole of his foot was imprinted on Yin Feng's face again. Yin Feng let out a scream and slid out along the floor. Whoosh! Lu Ming took a step forward and chased after Yin Feng, wanting to step on him again. Enough! A voice came from the crowd of Dragon God Valley. Then, a figure rushed out at an astonishing speed. Whoosh! 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 The figure instantly clawed out 9 times. 9 blood-red dragon claws clawed at Lu Ming. The claw wind whistled and its power was shocking. Lu Ming had a feeling that if he was hit by the dragon claws, he would be smashed to pieces. Lu Ming listened to the sound and struck out 9 times. His palms were covered by the chaotic domain and clashed with the 9 blood-red dragon claws. Bam! 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 After 9 consecutive explosions, Lu Ming's figure was stopped. The The figure borrowed the force and floated back dozens of meters. Second-level martial royal realm. Lu Ming was shocked and looked at the other party. It was a young man in his 20s. He looked younger than Lu Ming and was very handsome. Furthermore, he had eye-catching blood-red hair that was tied up casually. You. Lu Ming's heart stirred as he recognized this person. There were 13 top sects and factions that had entered the great emperor mystic realm. There were many geniuses and experts. This was especially so for the local geniuses. They had received the best training since young and many of them had innate spiritual bodies. They were extremely powerful. However, there were still leaders among these people who suppressed the rest. The leader of Dragon God Valley was the person in front of him. Yu. Lu Ming had heard people talking about this on their way to the great emperor mystic realm. Therefore, Lu Ming recognized this person. This person was indeed powerful. He had only entered the great emperor mystic realm for a short while, and his cultivation had already broken through to the second-level martial royal realm. It was shocking. Yu, help me kill him. Help me kill this bastard. Yin Feng shouted hysterically. He was about to go crazy. Lu Ming, your battle strength is admirable. Let's fight another day. Let's go. Unexpectedly, Yu did not continue the battle. Instead, he retreated. Yu, what are you doing? Help me kill this bastard. Yin Feng shouted. Nonsense. Yu glanced at Yin Feng coldly, before grabbing him and entering a path. The geniuses of Dragon God Valley exchanged glances with one another, before following Yu out of the place. After walking for a while. Yu, why didn't you kill that bastard and take the treasure? Yin Feng still did not give up and asked. Because even if I were to attack, I'm not confident that I can defeat this Lu Ming. Yu came to a stop and said in a serious tone. What? The people of Dragon God Valley, including Yin Feng, were stunned. After a while, Yin Feng said, how is that possible? Your cultivation has already broken through to the second-layer martial royal realm, and your innate spiritual body is at the mid-tier earthly spiritual body. How is it possible that you can't defeat that kid? Yu frowned as if he was in deep thought. After a while, he let out a sigh and said, this Lu Ming is giving me a dangerous feeling. He did not use his full strength in the previous exchange. I have a feeling that if we were to fight to the death now, I would be the one to die. What? Yin Feng and the others were stunned once again. They found it hard to believe. Yu, the peerless genius of Dragon God Valley, believed that he was no match against Lu Ming. How was this possible? Chapter 14:28. Let's go. Let's not provoke him in the great emperor's mystic realm for now. Once my cultivation improves, I'll have full confidence. Yu said as he strode forward. Lu Ming watched as Yu and the others left. He did not chase after them. He was not afraid of Yu, but he was afraid of unnecessary trouble. Now, Qiu Yingying was trying her best to receive the inheritance. If he fought with Yu, it would cause too much of a commotion and affect Qiu Yingying's inheritance. Seeing that Yu and the others had left, the onlookers did not dare to stay any longer. They all took to their heels and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Only Qiu Yingying, Qiu Hao, and Lu Ming were left in the hall. Lu Ming, you saved us again. Thank you. Qiu Hao walked to Lu Ming's side and cupped his fists at Lu Ming. His eyes were filled with gratitude. During this period of time, the siblings had been saved by Lu Ming many times. Otherwise, they did not know what would have happened to them. He was naturally very grateful to Lu Ming. Lu Ming smiled and said, there's no need to be so polite. We're friends, aren't we? Since I met you, do you want me to stand by and do nothing? Lu Ming said it casually, but Qiu Hao was even more grateful. By the way, Lu Ming, I obtained 2 sacred weapons here. You can have this shield. Qiu Hao handed the shield to Lu Ming. Brother Qiu, this is your opportunity. Why are you giving it to me? Lu Ming shook his head and smiled. Sacred weapons were very precious. To be honest, Lu Ming was also very tempted. However, this was Qiu Hao's opportunity. Lu Ming would naturally not steal it from someone else. Lu Ming, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been able to keep these 2 sacred weapons. This golden bell is very compatible with me, but this shield is not very compatible with me. Perhaps it's more suitable for you. Qiu Hao insisted on giving the shield to Lu Ming. Seeing Qiu Hao like this, Lu Ming could only take the shield. It's so heavy. Grabbing the shield, Zhang Xian felt a slight weight on his palm. Lu Ming had cultivated the dragon god battle body and was extremely strong. However, this shield still made him feel slightly heavy. Its weight was astonishing. The shield exuded a mysterious fluctuation, which was somewhat similar to the air-frozen bead and thunder cauldron that Lu Ming had obtained. A saint artifact shield is definitely a rare treasure. Lu Ming also liked it a little. If he took this shield out, it would be invaluable. Immediately, Lu Ming and Qiu Hao sat cross-legged on either side of Qiu Yingying and began to refine their respective saint weapons. True essence poured into the shield, and the shield hummed lightly, emitting a buzzing sound as it emitted a brilliant light. Not long after, the shield shrank rapidly and flew into Lu Ming's forehead, disappearing without a trace. The shield could be considered to be at the initial stage of refinement. Of course, it was impossible for Lu Ming to completely refine the shield, nor was it possible for him to unleash the full power of the shield. This was a saint weapon. Just like the Thunder Cauldron, Lu Ming had the Thunder Cauldron for many years, but he could only unleash a small portion of its power. The difference in their cultivation was too great. Lu Ming stood up and saw that Qiu Hao was still refining the golden bell. The golden bell floated above Qiu Hao's head, emitting rays of light that enveloped Qiu Hao. After a while, the golden bell turned into a beam of golden light and disappeared into Qiu Hao's forehead. He had also begun to refine it. Buzz! At this moment, a powerful fluctuation came from Qiu Yingying's body. So powerful! Facing this fluctuation, Lu Ming felt like he was facing a Saint Realm expert. The terrifying pressure made him feel like he was about to suffocate. However, as soon as the fluctuation came out, it quickly retracted into Qiu Yingying's body and disappeared. At this moment, Qiu Yingying opened her eyes. Yingying, did you succeed? Qiu Hao looked at Qiu Yingying expectantly. Yes. Qiu Yingying nodded. Qiu Hao was overjoyed. Lu Ming, thank you for saving me. Qiu Yingying bowed to Lu Ming. Although she had been receiving the inheritance, she still had a vague sense of what was happening in the outside world. She knew that Lu Ming had saved them. Otherwise, Qiu Yingying would have been lucky if she could keep her life, let alone receive the inheritance. You're welcome. Yingying, why were you suddenly brought in? What happened? Lu Ming asked curiously. It's that jade pendant. When I first entered the Great Emperor's mystic realm, I got it by accident. I didn't know what it was for, so I kept it with me. I didn't expect it to be the key to the inheritance. I received the inheritance with this jade pendant. Qiu Yingying said. Lu Ming sighed. This was an opportunity. Yingying, did you get any useful information from the inheritance? Qiu Hao asked curiously. I haven't fully digested the inheritance. I just received it, so I don't know much. I only know that it's the inheritance of an absolute saint senior. Qiu Yingying said. Absolute saint. Lu Ming and Qiu Hao were shocked. An absolute saint was close to becoming a great emperor. They were happy for Qiu Yingying to receive the inheritance of an absolute saint. However, I received an important piece of information from the inheritance. It's about Emperor Tsong. It said that 7 types of inheritances will appear. Once 7 rainbow bridges break through the void, Emperor Tsong's palace will appear. Qiu Yingying said. 7 types of inheritances? That's easy to understand. Yingying, you're one of them. But what do you mean by 7 rainbow bridges? Lu Ming frowned. Qiu Yingying shook her head, indicating that she had no idea. Let's go. Let's get out of here first. I'm afraid that the other places have already been searched, Lu Ming said. Immediately, the 3 of them headed out. After making many turns, the 3 of them exited the fortress. Buzz! As soon as the 3 of them got out of the fortress, the entire fortress shook violently. Rays of light shone from above. Finally, under everyone's shocked gazes, the light gathered on the fortress, forming an incomparably huge rainbow. It pierced through the void and extended to an unknown place, disappearing into the vast sky. Rainbow Bridge. That's the Rainbow Bridge. Qiu Hao exclaimed. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. The Rainbow Bridge. Now they understood. It seemed that there were 7 types of inheritances in this secret realm. Every time someone received an inheritance, a rainbow bridge would be activated that led to the depths of the void. When the 7 rainbow bridges converged, Emperor Tsong's palace would appear. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The fortress shook, and many young people in the fortress flew out. They looked at the rainbow bridge in the sky in confusion. What's going on? Many people looked at each other. Let's go and find the next inheritance, Lu Ming said. They naturally would not explain it to others. The three of them flew into the sky and left the place. Whoosh! Not long after they flew out, a rainbow light suddenly broke through the void in the distance. Rainbow Bridge. Another rainbow bridge. Obviously, someone had received the inheritance. One end of the two rainbow bridges broke through the void in the same direction. Chapter 1429. Everyone in the great emperor's mystic realm began to search for the inheritances frantically. The next inheritance must be mine. I must get the next inheritance. Many youths looked determined and confident, especially the leaders of the 13 sections. Their eyes shone brightly. These leaders were only the leaders of this batch who had entered the mystic realm. They were not the leaders of the younger generation in their sections. Many of the younger generation in the various sects had already broken through to the martial emperor realm. Most of the geniuses were in the martial emperor realm. Some of them were even more talented than them. The great emperor's mystic realm was their opportunity. If they could obtain an inheritance, they would be able to compete with the younger generation in the future. Lu Ming, Qiu Yingying, and Qiu Hao flew aimlessly. They did not have any clues to find the inheritance. They could only rely on luck. Whoosh! Whoosh! In front of them, a few rays of light were flying in the same direction. The three of them did not pay much attention to it. However, from time to time, they would see rays of light flying in the same direction. The three of them were curious. At that moment, another figure flew past. Lu Ming stopped him. What a coincidence. This person was also a disciple of the Divine Dragon Valley. There might be an inheritance in front of us. This Dragon God Valley disciple only left behind a sentence and hurriedly left. An inheritance? The three of their eyes lit up. It seemed that another person had found an inheritance. Let's go and take a look, Lu Ming said. The three of them flew in that direction. After flying for more than an hour, the terrain gradually became desolate. Although the terrain was flat, there was no vegetation. The three of them continued to fly. There's someone in front. Qiu Yingying pointed ahead. There was a person lying there motionless. The three of them flew over and found that the person was dead. There was a faint smell of blood in the air. How did this person die? There's no wound. Qiu Hao checked and said, it's in his dantian. Lu Ming discovered an extremely tiny hole in the clothes of this person's dantian. After unbuttoning this person's clothes, he discovered that there was also an extremely tiny hole in this person's dantian. It seemed to have been pierced by a sharp weapon. It was a fatal blow. Even the spirit god did not manage to escape. The three of them checked it out and continued forward. However, not long after, the three of them stopped again. That was because this time, they saw several corpses at once. After examining them, they found that the cause of death for each of the corpses was the same. Their dantian had been pierced by a sharp weapon, and they were killed with a single strike. Judging from their lingering auras, these people should be Jizuan realm cultivators. The three of them continued on their journey, but soon, the three of them were shocked. Corpses. The road was littered with corpses. In one place there were more than 1,000 corpses. Each corpse had died in the same way. Their dantians were all pierced. Among these people, some were even rulers. As they moved forward, they saw even more corpses. In total there were more than 5,000 corpses. All of these people were geniuses. Any single one of them would be a top existence if they were to be placed in the continent of God. But now, they were all dead without a single sound. Lu Ming sighed inwardly. The Yuan continent was indeed many times more dangerous than the godly ruins. Where is this place? Why is it so evil? Qiu Yingying's face turned pale. What kind of existence can kill so many people? Moreover, their wounds are all the same. This is unbelievable. Qiu Hao's heart was pounding. Such a scene was too evil. Anyone would be scared. Boom. Suddenly, a violent explosion was heard in front of them. A figure rushed into the sky and then swooped down. Get lost, get lost. The figure roared. The battle saber in his hand slashed out rays of saber light in all directions. Its power was extremely shocking. He's so powerful. He's not weaker than Yin Feng. Qiu Yingying exclaimed. Such a powerful figure seemed to be in mortal danger at this moment. He was killing and slashing out dazzling saber light. Ding, ding. When he slashed out with his saber light, there was a clanking sound in the air. That's a type of butterfly. Qiu Yingying suddenly pointed ahead and exclaimed. At the same time, Lu Ming and Qiu Hao also saw it. It was a type of butterfly that was almost transparent. It was shockingly fast. If one did not look carefully, one would not be able to see it. Moreover, this butterfly had two sharp thorns on its tail that looked like two tiny swords. The sword-tail disc. Those three words appeared in Lu Ming's mind. The sword-tail disc was an extremely terrifying insect. These ferocious insects were transparent, and their speed was astonishing. They came and went without a trace. Moreover, there were two sword-like spikes on their tails. These spikes had terrifying attack power and penetrating power. Moreover, they were extremely fast. Ordinary people would be pierced by the spikes before they could even discover them, dying miserably on the spot. That was how the sword-tail disc got its name. Lu Ming finally knew how those people died. They were killed by the sword-tail disc. At this moment, the person in front of them was surrounded by hundreds of sword-tail discs. He tried his best to defend himself. When he saw Lu Ming and the others, his eyes lit up and he rushed toward Lu Ming and the others. This guy wants to drag us down with him, Qiu Hao said. A golden bell appeared above his head and scattered a light screen that enveloped him. On Qiu Yingying's body, a feather robe emitted light and covered her. Go back, Lu Ming said coldly and threw a punch at the young man. The terrifying fist force drowned the young man. How dare you, the young man shouted angrily. Lu Ming curled his lips. This person wanted to drag them down with him, but Lu Ming didn't dare to fight back. Boom! The young man had no choice but to slash with his saber. It hit Lu Ming's fist force and sent the young man flying with a loud bang. Whoosh! Whoosh! At the same time, the thorns on the sword-tail disc stabbed a few small holes in the young man's body. Fortunately, they didn't hit any vital parts. The young man soared into the sky and flew into the distance. His voice came from afar. Just you wait. Then, he disappeared into the horizon. A group of sword-tail discs chased after him. However, the young man had successfully dragged Lu Ming and the others down with him. At least half of the sword-tail discs that were attacking the young man were attacking Lu Ming and the others. Whoosh! Whoosh! A sharp sound broke through the air as hundreds of thorns pierced toward Lu Ming and the others. Buzz! Lu Ming activated the chaotic domain. The chaotic domain spread out and enveloped all the sword-tail discs. Then, Lu Ming pressed down with one hand and the terrifying power of the chaotic domain crushed toward the sword-tail discs. The chaotic domain was millions of pounds heavy. Under the heavy pressure, the pressure was astonishing. Chapter 1430. Looks like it's not safe ahead. I'm afraid there will be a large number of sword-tail discs. Yingying, brother Qiu. Lu Ming looked at Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao. His meaning was clear. It was too dangerous to continue. Given Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao's strength, they would be in danger. Lu Ming, big brother, and I will wait for you outside. Qiu Yingying was very smart and said quickly. She knew that if she and Qiu Hao followed Lu Ming, they would be a burden to Lu Ming. Lu Ming could only move freely if he was alone. Okay, wait for me outside. Lu Ming nodded. Lu Ming, be careful. Qiu Yingying said worriedly. Don't worry. Lu Ming smiled and flew away. Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao went back the way they came and left. Whoosh! Lu Ming was alone. His speed suddenly increased. Like a phantom, he flashed across the void. Whoosh! 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 After Lu Ming flew for a while, hundreds of sword-tail discs attacked Lu Ming. It was very sudden and too fast. An ordinary martial king would not be able to survive such an attack. However, Lu Ming was not an ordinary martial king. The chaotic territory covered his body and the sword-tail disc spikes could not break through Lu Ming's chaotic territory. The chaotic territory shook and the spikes were all shattered. Boom! Then, Lu Ming threw a punch and the chaotic domain crushed forward. Those sword-tail discs exploded under the powerful fist force. Lu Ming did not stop and continued to move forward. Along the way, Lu Ming encountered several waves of attacks. However, Lu Ming rushed past them and shattered them in the air. Soon, a forest appeared in front of him. That is. Lu Ming looked into the distance. The forest covered a large area. In the center of the forest, there was a tall tower in the shape of a sword. It looked like a divine sword that pierced the sky. Even from a distance one could see it. Is that the land of inheritance? Lu Ming's heart stirred. Scram! Not far away, a person was charging forward. This person was very strong and should be someone with an innate spirit body. However, at this moment, a large group of sword-tail discs flew out from the forest below and attacked this person. This person tried his best to attack, but he couldn't break through the sword-tail disc's obstruction at all. Several large holes were pierced into his body, and he almost died here. He could only retreat in a sorry state. Lu Ming looked around and found that there were many corpses in the forest. Because they all wanted to charge through this forest and were killed by the sword-tail disc. Presumably, this forest was the lair of the sword-tail disc. Who knew how many sword-tail discs resided here? In order to reach the sword pagoda, one had to pass through this forest. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this time, another group of sword-tail discs flew out towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming pressed forward with one hand, and the chaotic field spread out and enveloped the group of sword-tail discs. Then with a shake, the sword-tail discs were all killed and fell into the forest like raindrops. Lu Ming smiled faintly and stepped forward, heading towards the sword pagoda. Wait a minute! Suddenly, a cold shout sounded, and then two rainbow lights flashed towards Lu Ming. The rainbow lights faded, and two figures appeared. It's you! Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. One of them was the young man who had been attacked by the sword-tail discs and then led the sword-tail discs to Lu Ming and Xueqi. Lu Ming didn't go looking for him, but he appeared on his own. The other person's aura was also very strong. Obviously, he was a prodigy of the same level as this person. Your field is very mysterious. It can actually suppress the sword-tail discs. No wonder you didn't die. Now take the two of us there. The young man who had dragged Lu Ming and Xueqi into the water said coldly. Is there something wrong with your head? Lu Ming sneered. What did you say? The young man's eyes turned cold. You framed me and wanted to drag me into the water to help you escape. Now, you're asking me to take you there? Is there something wrong with your head? Lu Ming continued. If you don't take me there, you'll die now, the young man said, and his body was filled with cold murderous intent. Is that so? Then, you can go to hell. As soon as Lu Ming finished speaking, he threw out a punch. The chaotic field was driven by Lu Ming's fist force, and it crushed towards the young man. How dare you make a move? You're courting death. Ah, no, the young man began to yell, but then he realized that Lu Ming's fist force was unbelievably powerful. He exerted all his strength and slashed with his saber, but under Lu Ming's fist force, the saber light was shattered and the fist force hit him directly. Bam! Half of his body exploded. Although his combat strength was not weaker than Yin Feng's, Lu Ming did not use the chaotic field when he fought with Yin Feng previously. Now that he used the chaotic field, it was simply crushing. Swoosh! Lu Ming stretched out his hand and grabbed half of the young man's body. Spare me. The young man was not dead yet, and he begged for mercy in horror. It's too late to beg for mercy now. Lu Ming swung his hand and threw half of the young man's body into the forest. Suddenly, a dense sword-tail disc flew out from the forest. No, the young man yelled. The next moment, the sword-tail disc engulfed him, and his body was pierced into a hornet's nest, and he died on the spot. Did I say you could leave? Lu Ming took a step forward, and his body was like a stream of light. The other young man was almost scared to death when he saw Lu Ming's combat strength. He fled in horror. However, Lu Ming's speed was so fast that he caught up with him in a few breaths. The result was already determined. With one move, the young man was half dead. Lu Ming did the same and threw the severely injured young man into the forest, where he was pierced by thousands of arrows. Then, Lu Ming continued to move forward. In the forest, a dense sword-tail disc rushed out and pounced on Lu Ming. Whoosh! Lu Ming covered his body with the chaotic field and used the wind origin technique. His entire body seemed to have turned into a long spear and rushed through. Wherever Lu Ming passed by, the sword-tail discs would explode one after another. Amidst the densely packed sword-tail discs, a passageway was created. The sword-tail disc could not stop Lu Ming in the slightest. Soon, Lu Ming successfully rushed through the forest and approached the sword pagoda. Strangely, as soon as he rushed through the forest, the sword-tail disc stopped chasing and all retreated. Boom! Clang! Not far from the sword pagoda, there was a terrifying rumble. Someone was fighting. Get lost! The Emperor Domain fruit is mine. You want to get the Emperor Domain fruit? Dream on. Die for me. Swordlight, Saberlight, and Palm Prince surged. In that area, there were 4 figures fighting in a chaotic battle. These 4 people's combat strength was very shocking, and they were even stronger than Yin Feng. No wonder they could break through the sword-tail disc's encirclement and rush here. Emperor Domain fruit. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He looked around and found 3 fruit trees. On each tree there was a fruit. Each fruit was sparkling and resplendent, and there was the aura of the Great Tao lingering around it. It's really the Emperor Domain fruit. Chapter 1431. The Royal Region fruit was a rare treasure. It was said that a low-level martial royal realm martial artist could raise his cultivation by 1 level after consuming the Royal Region fruit. Even a high-level martial royal realm martial artist would benefit greatly from consuming the Royal Region fruit, as it could help him break through his bottleneck. If a martial royal realm martial artist wanted to raise his cultivation, he would first have to raise his realm, then cultivate his true origin and condense his spiritual body. However, the Royal Region fruit could raise one's cultivation by 1 level. The most amazing thing was that it would be useful for martial artists regardless of their realm. This kind of treasure was simply heaven-defying. It was no wonder that these people were fighting over it. The 3 Royal Region fruits are mine. Lu Ming moved and pounced toward the Royal Region fruits. The chaotic realm that he cultivated was 10 times or even 100 times more difficult than an ordinary realm. However, if he had the Royal Region fruits, how much effort and time could he save? Such a rare treasure was hard to come by. Since Lu Ming had come across it, he would not give it up. You're courting death. Trying to snatch the Royal Region fruits? Dang! The 4 people who were fighting noticed Lu Ming and roared furiously. They attacked Lu Ming at the same time. The 4 people's combat strength was shocking, surpassing Yin Feng and the others. Even Lu Ming could not ignore the 4 people's furious attacks. Boom! 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 Lu Ming threw out 4 punches in a row and destroyed the 4 people's attacks. How powerful! The 4 people were shocked when they saw Lu Ming destroy their attacks with just a punch. We are no match for this person's combat strength alone. If he gets the Royal Region fruits, we will have no chance at all. One of the young men said. That's right. Why don't we team up and kill this person before fighting for the Royal Region fruits? All right. That's what I was thinking. The figures of the 4 young men flashed and surrounded Lu Ming in the middle. A powerful steam engine was emitted and locked onto Lu Ming. Get lost! Lu Ming shouted and formed a terrifying sound wave that attacked one of the young men in front of him. At the same time, he threw a punch at the young man in front of him. If he wanted to fight, he had to focus on one of them. The young man's expression changed. He didn't expect that Lu Ming would dare to make the first move when facing the 4 of them. Sword chi bloomed in his hand, and a sharp sword chi burst out, breaking apart the blast of air that Lu Ming spat out. However, when his sword slashed towards Lu Ming's fist, his expression changed greatly. The primal chaos domain pressed down. His sword light was like a willow leaf in the wind, swaying rapidly as if it would collapse at any moment. At this moment, the other 3 people also made their move. A saber light, a palm print, and a spear light bombarded Lu Ming at the same time. But Lu Ming pretended not to see it. The primal chaos domain covered Lu Ming's entire body. Boom! 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 The 3 attacks landed on the primal chaos domain. The primal chaos domain shook violently, but it did not break. Their expressions changed greatly. What kind of domain is this? Why is it so terrifying? The 3 of them had the same thought in their minds. The primal chaos domain was a legendary domain. Not many people could recognize it. Moreover, they never thought that there would be someone in this world who could cultivate the primal chaos domain. The 3 people's attacks did not break the primal chaos domain, but Lu Ming's attack continued to crush it. Bang! The young man's sword light finally couldn't hold on and collapsed. The primal chaos domain erupted with a terrifying fist force. Puff! The young man's body shook violently, and he spat out large mouthfuls of blood. His body flew out like a cannonball. Whoosh! Then, Lu Ming's figure flashed, dodging the attacks of the other 3 people. Cold killing intent enveloped the other 3 people. At this moment, the sword pagoda not far away emitted a buzzing sound, and the door at the bottom of the pagoda suddenly opened. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this moment, 2 streaks of sword light flew toward the sword pagoda from another direction and rushed into the gate at an extremely fast speed. The sword pagoda opened, and 2 experts rushed in. Bas! At this moment, Lu Ming's third bloodline appeared, turning into a blood-red spear. Lu Ming grabbed it. Total annihilation. The blood-red spear swept out, containing the terrifying power of the Primal Chaos Domain and the Primal Chaos Domain. Bang! 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 The 3 young men were sent flying by Lu Ming like sandbags. They flew thousands of meters away, spitting out mouthfuls of blood as they looked at Lu Ming in shock. Lu Ming's battle strength was too terrifying. He was almost invincible among those of the same level. After sending the 3 young men flying with one move, Lu Ming's figure flashed, and he pounced on the Emperor Domain fruit. This time, the 3 young men did not dare to stop him. They watched as Lu Ming plucked the Emperor Domain fruit and put it away. After plucking the Emperor Domain fruit, Lu Ming did not stop. He rushed into the sword pagoda and rushed in through the door at the bottom. Who is this person? What terrifying battle strength! I'm afraid he's comparable to the leaders of the 13 sects. Indeed, but the 2 sword lights just now were the 2 leaders, Luo Xiang from the Life and Death Sword faction and Wang Xiao from the 9 Heaven Sword sect. This is interesting. 3 leaders fighting for the inheritance. This is going to be interesting. Let's go take a look. Following that, the few young men also flew toward the sword pagoda. As soon as Lu Ming flew into the sword pagoda, he found that the sword pagoda was filled with sharp sword qi. Sword qi slashed toward him. It was the aftermath of the sword qi. In the sword pagoda, there were 2 people fighting fiercely. Sword qi filled the entire sword pagoda. What powerful battle strength! Lu Ming's eyes narrowed slightly. Of the 2 young men, one was wearing an ordinary black robe. He was handsome, and there was a sword mark between his eyebrows. It seemed like a divine sword would fly out at any time. The other person was wearing a robe with clouds. He was tall and had a wild aura. Both of them were sword cultivators and used long swords. Clang, clang, clang. In an instant, the 2 of them had exchanged dozens of blows. Their long swords collided and sword qi was rampant. Both of their cultivations were at rank 2 martial royal realm, which was comparable to He Yu, the leader of the Divine Dragon Valley. Luo Xiang, this inheritance is mine, the young man in the robe said coldly. Wang Xiao, the inheritance is not something you can talk about. Luo Xiang replied coldly. At that moment, the 2 of them saw Lu Ming. However, their eyes were cold and they did not take Lu Ming seriously at all. You guys can continue fighting. Lu Ming smiled faintly. He soared into the sky and dashed toward the top of the sword pagoda. There was no staircase in the sword pagoda. The center was empty and led to the top. If one wanted to go up, they would have to rush up from the center. Get lost! As soon as Lu Ming rushed up, Wang Zhao's eyes turned cold and a sword light slashed toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming struck out with his palm and shattered the sword light. He did not stop and continued to move upward. Not bad. Wang Zhao's eyes turned cold. He gave up on Luo Xiang and became one with his sword. He turned into a sword light and shot up to the sky, stabbing toward Lu Ming from below. Get lost! Lu Ming shouted coldly. He used the 9 dragon sky stomping steps and took 9 steps in a row. Chapter 1432. Wang Zhao's expression changed abruptly. His body fell down involuntarily. Swoosh! At this moment, Luo Xiang caught up with Lu Ming. He soared into the sky and chased after Lu Ming. With the help of Wang Zhao's power, Lu Ming's body swayed and he dashed to the highest floor in an instant. With a twist of his body and a stomp of his feet, Lu Ming moved dozens of meters horizontally and landed on the highest floor. Then, Luo Xiang flew up. Swoosh! After Luo Xiang, it was Wang Xiao. He landed on the ground and looked at Lu Ming gloomily. As the leader of the 9 Heaven Sword sect in the Mystic Realm this time, he was actually kicked down by Lu Ming, an unknown person. This made his expression turn ugly. At that moment, Lu Ming's attention was attracted by something in front of him. There were 3 balls of light floating in the air in front of him. In one of the balls of light, there was a book that looked like it was made of gold. Strangely, there was a human figure on the book's surface, dancing with a sword. It was very mysterious. It was a martial technique. A sword principle martial technique. In the second ball of light there was a sword. The sword's body was snow white. With one look, one could feel a terrifying sword radiance. A sacred weapon. This sword was definitely a powerful sacred weapon. In the third ball of light it was much simpler. There were only about 100 fist-sized stones. The Heavenly Law Stone. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Almost at the same time, the three of them moved. Lu Ming pounced on the Heavenly Law Stone. To Lu Ming, the sword principle martial technique was useless to him. He was not a sword cultivator and did not practice the sword. Although the sacred weapon was precious, it was not very useful to him. If he took it out, he would just sell it. These were not as attractive to him as the Heavenly Law Stone. The Heavenly Law Stone was the foundation of increasing one's strength. As long as one had strength, one would not be afraid of not having treasures. Lu Ming pounced on the Heavenly Law Stone, Luo Xiang pounced on the sword principle martial technique, and Wang Xiao pounced on the sacred weapon. Bam! Lu Ming grabbed the ball of light. The ball of light shook but was not broken. It really has a defensive function. Lu Ming's heart stirred. Next, the chaos domain covered Lu Ming's palm. Circulating the suppressing hell heavenly skill, he slammed his palm into the ball of light. Wang! The ball of light shook violently. Although it didn't break apart, the light of the ball of light dimmed a little. Continue! Lu Ming unleashed a barrage of attacks. The primal chaos domain combined with the hell-suppressing heaven skill was extremely powerful. The ball of light constantly shook and flickered. In less than 10 breaths, Lu Ming had already sent out over 100 attacks. Finally, the ball of light collapsed into motes of light and disappeared. Lu Ming reached out and collected over 100 heavenly Dao stones into his storage ring. A smile appeared on Lu Ming's face. In total, he had obtained more than 200 heavenly Dao stones. The heavenly Dao stones were extremely precious. Even a sage realm expert would want to look for them. Lu Ming's trip to the great emperor's mystic realm had not been in vain. After keeping the heavenly Dao stones, he looked around and realized that Luo Xiang and Wang Xiao had yet to break apart the ball of light. Sword light burst out from their hands and slashed at the ball of light. The ball of light shook and its light dimmed. Lu Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. His body moved and pounced towards the ball of light that Wang Xiao was in. He slammed his palm out and the ball of light shook violently. "What are you doing?" Wang Xiao shouted angrily. Lu Ming sneered. He couldn't be bothered with him and slammed his palm out again. "Brat, you dare to fight with me for the sacred weapon? You're courting death." Wang Xiao shouted angrily. The sword light in his hand flashed and slashed towards Lu Ming. Bam! Lu Ming kicked out. This kick was also a combination of the hell-suppressing heaven skill and the primal chaos domain. Wang Xiao's sword light was scattered. His body swayed slightly and he took 2 steps back. Bam! Lu Ming slammed his palm on the ball of light again. With a poof, the ball of light was destroyed. Lu Ming grabbed the sacred weapon and kept it in his storage ring. "Brat! Hand over the sacred weapon." Wang Xiao let out a furious roar and pounced on Lu Ming. His sword aura surged toward Lu Ming like rainbows. "You want the sacred weapon? Let's see if you have the ability." Lu Ming sneered. When Lu Ming entered, Wang Xiao was the first to attack him. Now that he had the chance to snatch a sacred weapon, how could Lu Ming be polite? His palm was like a knife as he slashed down continuously. Under Lu Ming's palm, Wang Xiao's sword light was destroyed. Damn it! Wang Xiao was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. However, he was shocked to find that he could not do anything to Lu Ming. In fact, Lu Ming's attack was stronger than his. He was suppressed by Lu Ming. Swoosh! Swoosh! Lu Ming waved his palm. With the help of the primal chaos domain, he slashed out 12 times in an instant. It was as if 12 mountains were pressing down on Wang Xiao. Wang Xiao raised his cultivation to the peak of LV2 martial royal realm. Sword light burst out, trying to break out of the mountains. Clang! 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 Sparks flew in all directions as the sword chi was destroyed. Wang Xiao used all his strength and finally broke through a gap. He rushed out of Lu Ming's attack range and retreated far away. He felt the blood in his body churning as he looked at Lu Ming with a grave expression. At the same time, Luo Xiang also broke through the ball of light and put away the sword principle manual. Damn it! Wang Xiao was so depressed that he was about to vomit blood. Originally, the 3 of them had 3 treasures. However, in the end, Lu Ming got 2 of them and he did not get a share. That was a holy weapon. If he could refine it, his combat strength would definitely increase greatly. Unfortunately, it had fallen into Lu Ming's hands. He stared at Lu Ming viciously. What? Do you want to die? Lu Ming glanced at Wang Xiao, murderous intent flashing in his eyes. Bas! At that moment, a spot of light suddenly lit up in front of the three of them. The spot of light was dazzling, and slowly, a small sword appeared. The small sword was only the size of a palm, but it was dazzling. The light was like tiny swords that spread out in all directions. Inheritance! The three of them were shocked. Their eyes shone with a fiery light. Almost at the same time, the three of them moved and pounced on the light sword. However, in the next moment, their faces changed. They pushed forward with their palms, and then the three of them stepped back together. What a strong pressure! What a strong sword chi! Lu Ming's eyes were a little solemn. When he rushed out just now, he felt the powerful sword chi from the light sword as if it was going to tear him apart. If he had not blocked it in time, he would have been injured. Presumably, Luo Xiang and Wang Xiao were in the same situation. It seemed that it was not that easy to get the light sword. Bam! Bam! Lu Ming covered his body with the chaotic domain and walked forward step by step. A layer of ripples appeared in the chaotic domain. That was because it was being attacked. Small sword chi was densely packed and endless, constantly stabbing the chaotic domain. Luo Xiang and Wang Xiao also stepped forward. Of course, they were also being attacked and were trying their best to resist. The speed of the three of them became very slow. However, Lu Ming covered his body with the chaotic domain and walked forward step by step firmly. His speed was still faster than Luo Xiang and Wang Xiao. Chapter 1433. Lu Ming was a few meters ahead, which made Luo Xiang's eyes flash. As for Wang Xiao, he was furious as he gritted his teeth and charged forward. Whoosh! 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 Four figures rushed up from the bottom of the sword pagoda. They were the four youths who fought with Lu Ming for the Emperor Region fruit. It's the inheritance. The sword pagoda's inheritance. When they saw the light sword, their eyes flashed with greed as they stepped forward. But at the same time, they were attacked by the sword chi and their speed was slower than a snail. The power of the sword chi is getting stronger. Lu Ming's face turned serious. The closer they got to the light sword, the stronger the pressure and the power of the sword chi. The ripples on the chaotic domain became more intense. Boom! Lu Ming used offense as defense and began to use the hell-suppressing heaven skill to break the sword chi. This way it was better. Lu Ming's speed suddenly increased. Seeing this, Luo Xiang and Wang Xiao also began to attack. Sword chi burst out from their hands and collided with the sword chi that pierced towards them. Dense collision sounds rang out in the air. But their speed was still inferior to Lu Ming's. The light sword was not far from them. In a short while, Lu Ming was already close to the light sword. He was less than a meter away from the light sword. He could reach out and grab it. At this point, the power of the sword chi light had reached an astonishing level. Damn it, no! Wang Xiao roared in his heart. Seeing that the inheritance was about to be taken by Lu Ming, he was extremely unwilling. He tried his best to move forward, but it was impossible for him to get close to the light sword. Lu Ming did not hesitate. His palm covered with the chaotic domain, he grabbed the light sword and successfully grabbed it. Bas! At this moment, the light sword trembled slightly and shone brightly. A terrifying sword chi burst out. Lu Ming's face changed. He felt that the chaotic domain on his palm could not withstand it and was about to shatter. A terrifying sword chi broke through Lu Ming's palm and blasted towards Lu Ming. Bang! Lu Ming's body involuntarily retreated after being hit by the sword chi. He slid along the ground for dozens of meters. He had failed. The lightsaber did not acknowledge him. Lu Ming shook his head and smiled, not too surprised. The inheritance here was obviously a sword Dao inheritance. Since he did not cultivate the sword, it was normal for him to be rejected by the light sword. Previously, he had only wanted to give it a try. Even if he could not obtain the inheritance, Lu Ming could be considered to have returned from a fruitful journey. The 3 Emperor Domain fruits and more than 100 heavenly Dao stones were all extremely useful to Lu Ming. Of course, there was also a Saint Weapon battle sword, which was also very valuable. Haha! Seeing Lu Ming being pushed back by the light sword, Wang Xiao laughed in his heart and urged the rear to charge forward. He and Luo Xiang approached the Sword of Light at almost the same time. Luo Xiang, you want to compete with me? Dream on! A small squirrel appeared in Wang Zhao's hand. Sword Rat. Luo Xiang's expression changed. Go attack him. Wang Xiao stared at Luo Xiang. Squeak squeak. The squirrel squeaked and revealed a look of fear. Wang Xiao, this place is filled with powerful sword qi. By asking the sword rat to attack me, you are asking it to die. Luo Xiang said. Humph. Hurry up and attack. Otherwise, I will kill you right now. Wang Xiao could not be bothered with Luo Xiang's words as he stared at the sword rat with murderous intent. Squeak squeak. The sword rat was so frightened that its body trembled. It then nodded as a look of sorrow flashed across its eyes. With a swoosh, it charged towards Luo Xiang. At this moment, Luo Xiang was the same as Wang Xiao. He needed to use all his strength to resist the sword qi and could not free himself to attack. Bang! The sword rat bombarded Luo Xiang's protective True Yuan and domain, causing Luo Xiang's body to tremble as he retreated. But that sword rat was also exposed to the endless sword qi. The sword rat wailed and turned into ashes under the sword qi. Haha, I finally seized the opportunity. Wang Xiao laughed and grabbed the lightsaber. The inheritance is mine. Wang Xiao grabbed the lightsaber with excitement in his eyes. He naturally saw that Lu Ming was repelled by the lightsaber because Lu Ming was not a sword cultivator and was naturally unable to obtain the approval of the lightsaber. But he was a pure sword cultivator who had practiced the sword since he was young and was a famous genius in the Nine Heavens sword sect. How could he not obtain the approval of the lightsaber? But in the next moment, his eyes suddenly opened wide. The lightsaber buzzed for a moment as a violent force erupted. Wang Xiao was also sent flying like Lu Ming. No, how could this be? Wang Xiao was unable to believe it and let out a furious roar. He was also rejected by the lightsaber. How could this be? Sword cultivators should be brave, persistent, decisive, persistent, sharp, and daring to act. But you are despicable and shameless. Wang Xiao, you are not worthy of using a sword. Luo Xiang's indifferent voice sounded out. Bang! Bang! Subsequently, Luo Xiang took a few steps forward and arrived before the lightsaber. Without the slightest hesitation, he grabbed the lightsaber. When Luo Xiang grabbed the lightsaber was unusually quiet. The powerful sword qi vanished without a trace in an instant, and it was like a docile pet. Luo Xiang has obtained the approval of the lightsaber. A young man said. Impossible, the inheritance is mine. Wang Xiao could not accept this fact. He roared angrily and pounced at Luo Xiang. Buzz! The lightsaber shook and released a powerful sword qi that sent Wang Xiao flying. Then, the lightsaber flashed and disappeared into the space between Luo Xiang's eyebrows. Whoosh! Luo Xiang jumped down from the sword pagoda and rushed out. At this moment, the sword pagoda began to shake. Let's go! Lu Ming jumped down from the sword pagoda and rushed out of the pagoda. The others also rushed out of the pagoda one by one, including Wang Xiao. However, his face was extremely gloomy. Buzz! The sword pagoda shook. Then, a rainbow bridge broke through the sky and rushed into the boundless void, joining the other two rainbow bridges. In the distance, a sword light flashed and flew into the distance. It was Luo Xiang. He had just obtained the inheritance and needed time to digest it. Luo Xiang, don't even think about obtaining the sword principal inheritance. Wang Zhao's eyes flashed coldly. He turned into a sword light and chased after Luo Xiang. Lu Ming shook his head. Wang Xiao was a narrow-minded person. No wonder he could not obtain the sword principal inheritance. He was far inferior compared to Luo Xiang. Lu Ming did not care about this matter and stepped out. Soon, Lu Ming rushed out of the sword-tail disc and returned to where he came from. Lu Ming did not care much about the inheritance here. He had the inheritance of the 9 dragons and the Chaos Emperor. The 9 dragons and the Chaos Emperor were the pinnacle experts in the world. Even among the great emperors they were at the peak. Lu Ming did not care about these small inheritances at all. Even if he obtained them, they would not be of much use to Lu Ming. Lu Ming wanted more treasures, such as the Heavenly Law Stone. These were of great use to Lu Ming. Soon, Lu Ming found Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao. Lu Ming, how is the inheritance? Qiu Yingying asked curiously. Chapter 1434. He was taken away by Luo Xiang. Lu Ming smiled. Luo Xiang, the peerless genius from the life and death sword sect. Qiu Yingying's eyes flickered. You know him? Lu Ming asked. Qiu Yingying nodded and said, My brother and I have been in the Yuan continent for 2 years. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy. In these 2 years, besides cultivating, we have not been idle. We have investigated some of the major forces in the Tsong continent and some of the outstanding geniuses. The Life and Death Sword sect is a special existence among the 13 top sections. The other sects have many disciples, but the Life and Death Sword sect has very few disciples. They are very strict when it comes to accepting disciples. Lu Ming nodded. Indeed, the Life and Death Sword sect had the least number of people entering the Great Emperor's secret realm. And this Luo Xiang is the most terrifying genius in the Life and Death Sword sect. It is said that he started practicing swordsmanship when he was 6, reached the spiritual sea realm when he was 7, and reached the peak of the Supreme Being when he was 9. Qiao Yingying said, started practicing swordsmanship when he was 6, and reached the peak of the Supreme Being when he was 9? Lu Ming was dumbfounded. This kind of cultivation speed was too fast. It was unimaginable. Although they were in the Yuan continent, it was too shocking. Lu Ming had obtained the 9 dragons bloodline, so his cultivation speed was already very shocking. However, it took him more than 10 years to reach his current level. Although Luo Xiang's talent is not bad, he looks like he is in his 20s. It is not that exaggerated. Lu Ming was puzzled. This is the most terrifying thing about Luo Xiang. It is said that he could have broken through to the Emperor realm long ago, but he has been suppressing himself at the peak of the Supreme Being. His goal is to nurture his sword soul and train his heart of the sword. He has been suppressing himself for 15 years. Qiao Yingying said. Lu Ming's eyes flashed with shock. In order to nurture his sword soul and train his heart of the sword, he was willing to suppress himself at the same realm for 15 years. This kind of person was too terrifying. Now that Luo Xiang had broken through and obtained the sword art inheritance, he would definitely rise in the future and become an absolutely terrifying person. Lu Ming secretly remembered Luo Xiang's name in his heart. Disregarding everything else, just his temperament alone was worthy of respect. Lu Ming asked himself if he would be able to suppress his cultivation level for 15 years. However, everyone's path was different. Lu Ming had his own path. Lu Ming's path might not be suitable for him. After chatting for a while, they left. Following that, the entire secret realm became even more lively. Everyone was searching for the remaining inheritances. Days passed. In the secret territory, there was a sea of blood. The roar of a dragon could be heard. Suddenly, a silhouette soared into the sky and stood above the sea of blood. This person was none other than the leader of Dragon God Valley, He Yu. Wang. Within the sea of blood, a rainbow bridge soared into the sky and disappeared into the void. The 4th inheritance had appeared. In the middle of a sea of flowers, a peerlessly beautiful woman stood in the middle. Her entire body shone with a resplendent light. The light emitted by the sea of flowers converged into a rainbow bridge that rushed into the void. The 5th inheritance had appeared. There was also a rainbow bridge in the middle of a desert. The 6th inheritance. In an ancient divine palace, a young man was bathed in the divine light and disappeared after a while. When he rushed out of the divine palace, a rainbow bridge soared into the sky above the divine palace. The 7th inheritance had appeared. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Several figures appeared beside the young man and bowed respectfully. Congratulations, senior brother Shi, for obtaining the inheritance. The 7 inheritances have all appeared. Emperor Tsong's palace is about to appear. This time, Emperor Tsong's treasures belong to our heavenly god sect. The young man spoke with a majestic tone, as if he was a deity speaking. Emperor Tsong's treasures belong to our heavenly god sect. The other young men spoke one after another. At this moment, everyone in the secret territory looked at the void. The 7 inheritances have all appeared. Emperor Tsong's palace is about to appear. On a mountain peak, Lu Ming, Qiao Yingying, and Qiao Hao stood against the wind and looked at the void. During this period of time, they had also been searching for the inheritances. Unfortunately, their luck seemed to have run out as they did not find any of the inheritances. High up in the sky, 7 rainbow bridges rushed into the void from all directions and gathered in one place. The entire Great Emperor's secret territory could see it. Boom! Suddenly, there was an earth-shattering explosion at the place where the rainbow bridges gathered. Following that, the cry of an eagle resounded through the heavens and earth. In the depths of the void, there seemed to be a huge object that was about to break through the void. Emperor Tsong's palace is about to appear. Charge, I want to seize the opportunity. I didn't get any of the 7 inheritances. Emperor Tsong's inheritance is mine. One by one, figures flew into the sky from all directions and rushed towards the place where the rainbow bridges gathered. Looking from below, the scene was very majestic. Countless figures were densely packed together and gathered in one place. It was very exciting. Let's go too, Lu Ming said. Then they soared into the sky and flew toward the sky. At this moment, another cry of an eagle resounded through the sky. Rumble! The void shattered as a huge object broke free from the void and slowly appeared in front of everyone. It was an eagle, an extremely huge eagle. To be precise, it was a building in the shape of an eagle. From afar, it looked very lifelike and a vast aura pressed down on everyone's hearts. Was this Emperor Tsong's palace? Everyone's eyes lit up. Legend had it that Emperor Tsong had become an emperor as an eagle. He was a supreme Fey emperor. There are a lot fewer people. Qiu Yingying said softly. Lu Ming nodded. Indeed, when they entered the great emperor's secret territory, there were more than 300,000 people. But now, there were less than 200,000 people here. Almost all of the others had died. More than 100,000 people had died. What a shocking number. The great emperor's secret territory had great opportunities, but it was also accompanied by great dangers. For example, at the Sword Dao inheritance ground, at least 10,000 people had died under the swordtail disc. Rumble! A moment later, a huge eagle appeared in front of everyone's eyes. It was huge, too huge. The eagle covered the sky and they couldn't see the end of it. The entire eagle was black and shiny. No one knew what material it was made of. Where's the entrance? Everyone was looking, but they couldn't see an entrance. The eagle's body was bare. Obviously, it couldn't be the real palace. The real palace must be inside the eagle. Caw! At this moment, the eagle's cry resounded through the sky. Everyone saw the eagle's mouth open, revealing a black passage. Could this be the passage to Emperor Tsong's palace? Everyone looked at each other. In the end, some people gritted their teeth and rushed towards the eagle's mouth. Chapter 1435. Charge! Charge! Once someone made a move, the others could no longer hold back and rushed towards the goshawk's mouth. Swoosh! 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 The crowd swarmed toward the goshawk's mouth like a swarm of bees. Lu Ming, Qiu Yingying, and Qiu Hao followed the crowd and charged toward the goshawk's mouth. The people at the front had already rushed into the goshawk's mouth and were not in danger. Seeing that nothing was wrong, the people at the back rushed forward even more crazily. Who knew if they would get some supreme treasure if they went in first? Naturally, the crowd was going crazy. Whoosh! Lu Ming was flying. Behind him, a terrifying palm print blasted towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming raised his eyebrows. Without even looking, he struck back with his palm and collided with the palm print behind him. Boom! The force was rampant. Lu Ming twisted his body and looked behind him. A young man in a white robe glanced at Lu Ming coldly and then sped forward. Someone from the Heavenly God sect. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Obviously, the white-robed young man from the Heavenly God sect wanted to kill him and sneak attacked him from behind when he was not paying attention. Xian Yanjuan from the Heavenly God sect. Lu Ming whispered in a cold voice. They continued to fly. Soon, Lu Ming and the others also flew into the passage. The goshawk was very large, so the passage was also very large. A large group of people flew in, but it was not crowded at all. Ah! Ah! At this moment, there was a shrill scream in front of them. What's going on? There's danger in front. Someone exclaimed. Swoosh swoosh. At this moment, there was an ear-piercing sound in front of them. Moreover, this sound was coming from afar. Swoosh, swoosh. Suddenly, on the walls of the passage on both sides of Lu Ming and the others, streaks of black light shot out rapidly. Immediately, someone screamed as his body was pierced by the black light and died. Defend! Lu Ming threw out a few punches in succession, destroying dozens of black rays of light. Lu Ming could clearly see that this jet-black light was not solid, but its power was astonishing. Its penetrative power was terrifying. Many people revolved their true essence to defend themselves, but it was useless. The jet-black light pierced through them. Those below Emperor level, please withdraw. Those below Emperor level, please withdraw. Someone shouted. Those below rulers could not block these lights at all and would be shot to death. Screams rang out continuously as people were shot to death. Inside the passageway, a series of domains spread out. Those who had broken through to become rulers had to use their domains and vital essence to protect their bodies to barely block the black light's attack. The feather robe on Qiu Yingying's body glowed and covered her whole body, blocking the light around her. As for Qiu Hao, a golden bell floated above his head. It scattered a light screen and easily blocked the light. As for Lu Ming, he was enveloped by the primal chaos domain. That kind of light could not touch him at all. No one flinched and continued to fly forward. Along the way, they saw many corpses. Nonetheless, most of them were supreme venerables. Only a few rulers were shot to death here if they were careless. However, as they continued to move forward, the power of the jet black light slowly became stronger. In the beginning, it shot out from the left and right sides, but later on, endless jet black light shot out from all directions. Its power was astonishing. Gradually, some of the rulers showed signs of being unable to withstand it. This passageway was very long. They flew for thousands of miles, but they still did not reach the end. Damn it, I'm not satisfied. Someone roared because he was about to be unable to withstand it. If they continued forward they would die. They could only retreat unwillingly. As they continued forward, it became more and more difficult to walk. However, Lu Ming, Qiu Yingying, and Qiu Hao were very relaxed. Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao's treasures were sacred weapons. Their defensive power was astonishing and unfathomable. Naturally, this attracted the attention of others. What a mysterious treasure. If I can get it, I can enter Emperor Tsong's chamber. Greed flashed in someone's eyes. Many people gathered around the three of them. How can the likes of you enjoy such a treasure? Give it to me. A young man with a cold gaze threw a palm at Qiu Hao. Buzz! The golden bell above Qiu Hao's head vibrated, and an invisible ripple spread out and rushed toward the young man. The young man's expression changed, and he quickly retreated. What a mysterious treasure. It must be a sacred weapon. Hand it over. Kill. The other young man took a step forward and charged towards Qiu Hao. A few others attacked Qiu Yingying. Get lost. Lu Ming shouted coldly and strode forward. He stretched out his hand and punched at the young men. Brat, it's good that I didn't look for you. Meddling in other people's business. Dang! A young man said coldly and punched at Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming punched out, and the violent fist force crushed the young man. The young man screamed and flew back. His protective true origin and domain were shattered by Lu Ming's punch. His body was instantly penetrated by the dense jet black light, and he died on the spot. Then, Lu Ming punched out a few more times, and a few more young men were sent flying. Their true origin and domain were penetrated by Lu Ming, and they all died under the jet black light. The remaining young men's faces changed drastically. Lu Ming's combat strength was too strong. He could completely crush them. At this moment, an extremely sharp force attacked Lu Ming from behind Lu Ming. When Lu Ming heard it, he knew that it was sword qi. It was extremely sharp, and the person who attacked was shockingly strong. Whoosh! Lu Ming activated the wind origin technique. At the critical moment, he moved 1 meter to the side and dodged the sword. It's you again! When he saw the person who attacked him, Lu Ming's killing intent surged. This person was the white-robed young man from the Celestial God sect who had attacked Lu Ming outside the passage. You're lucky! After his attack failed, the white-robed young man retreated and wanted to retreat. You've attacked me repeatedly, and now you want to leave? Did you ask for my permission? Lu Ming said coldly. The aura on his body surged. He took a step forward and rushed toward the white-robed young man. The black light did not pose much of a threat to Lu Ming. Seeing Lu Ming rushing toward him, the white-robed young man's face changed and he quickly rushed forward. However, his speed was no match for Lu Ming's. In just a few breaths' time, Lu Ming was already close to him. Brat, how dare you attack me? I'm an elder of the Celestial God sect. Seeing that he could not escape, the white-robed young man turned around and shouted at Lu Ming. Dang! Lu Ming charged toward him. This person is so naive. He had attacked Lu Ming repeatedly, trying to kill Lu Ming. Now he wants to threaten Lu Ming with the person behind him. Isn't he stupid? The white-robed young man swallowed his words when he saw Lu Ming's punch. He could only try his best to defend himself. Rays of sword light shot out from his hand with shocking power. This person should have an innate spiritual body. His cultivation had reached the peak of the first layer martial royal realm. His combat strength was not bad, but unfortunately, he was no match for Lu Ming. Bang! Chapter 1436. Whoosh! Lu Ming took a step forward and appeared in front of the white-robed young man. He then threw a kick at him. Bang! The white-robed young man's protective true energy and domain were shattered by Lu Ming's kick. Suddenly, countless rays of light shot toward the white-robed young man. The white-robed young man tried his best to defend himself. Fortunately, he had an innate spiritual body and had evolved into an inferior earth spiritual body. He managed to survive after a hole was made in his body. However, Lu Ming charged toward him again. Bang! Lu Ming reached out his claw and pierced through the white-robed young man's domain. He then grabbed the white-robed young man's neck and almost shattered his true energy. Naturally, his true yuan and domain disappeared without a trace. Help! The white-robed young man screamed in fear as countless rays of black light shot toward him. Lu Ming activated his chaotic domain and covered the white-robed young man, blocking the rays of black light. The white-robed young man took a deep breath and said, "Lu Ming, let me go. My uncle is an elder of the Heavenly God sect. If you kill me, nonsense." Lu Ming shouted coldly as a murderous intent burst out from his body. The white-robed young man swallowed his words. "Tell me, who sent you to kill me?" Lu Ming said coldly. It's... The white-robed young man was about to answer when a voice came from the other side. "You better let him go." A few young men walked out from the passage. The young man leading the group was tall and slender. His eyes were bright like a deity and his aura was intimidating. The aura of the second-layer martial royal realm spread out from his body. There were two other young men behind the young man. They were both at the peak of the first-layer martial royal realm. Their domains covered the area and the rays of black light could not harm them. That's the leader of the Heavenly God sect, Xueqi. Some people passed by and whispered to each other. They then rushed forward and left the place. "Senior brother Xueqi, save me!" The white-robed young man screamed when he saw Xueqi. "Brat, quickly release me. Otherwise, senior brother Xueqi will definitely put you in a life-and-death situation." Then, the white-robed young man scolded Lu Ming again, his arrogance rising again. "Really?" Lu Ming sneered. He lifted the white-robed youth and sent him out of the range of the domain. Instantly, 7 or 8 black beams of light pierced through the white-robed youth's body, causing him to bleed profusely. He let out a miserable scream. "Brat, you're courting death. How dare you!" Behind Xueqi, the two youths berated. Boom! Xueqi stepped forward. His powerful aura pressed down on Lu Ming as he said coldly, "I said, let him go." His tone carried an air of superiority as he ordered Lu Ming. "Who do you think you are? Furthermore, this person has ambushed me time and time again. He is dead for sure." Lu Ming said coldly. Xueqi's eyes were dark as he said, "If you kill him, I'll definitely kill you." "Really?" Lu Ming wore a ferocious expression on his face as the murderous intent on his body grew colder. "No." The white-robed young man retreated in horror. Boom! The power in Lu Ming's hand suddenly erupted and drowned the white-robed young man. Under Lu Ming's terrifying power, the white-robed young man's body was smashed into pieces. Die! At this moment, Xueqi's murderous intent exploded. His body was bathed in a sacred radiance. He took a step forward and the void rumbled. Xueqi raised his hand and pressed down. A huge sacred palm pressed down on Lu Ming. "Petty tricks." Lu Ming sneered. He also took a step forward and threw out a palm. A chaotic palm blasted out and faced Xueqi head-on. The two palms collided with each other, resulting in a brilliant explosion. A shockwave spread out from the collision, shattering the pitch-black light in the surroundings. Bam! In the next moment, Xueqi's sacred palm print collapsed. The chaotic palm print did not stop as it continued to attack Xueqi. Xueqi's expression changed. The sacred radiance on his body became even brighter and a long spear appeared in his hand. "Spear of divine punishment." Xueqi shouted softly. The sacred spear cut through the void, seemingly able to penetrate everything in the world. It pierced toward Lu Ming at an extremely fast speed. Xueqi's cultivation had reached the second realm of the martial royal realm, and he had cultivated a medium earth spiritual body. His battle strength was shocking, and he was on the same level as He Yu, Wang Xiao and Luo Xiang. Among the geniuses who had entered the great emperor mystic realm, he stood at the peak. Not many people could withstand this move of his. However, he met Lu Ming. The chaotic domain covered him. Lu Ming used the suppressing hell skill and punched out. The suppressing hell monument's shadow flashed on his fist and it directly hit the tip of the sacred spear. Dang! A deafening sound rang out. Xueqi's sacred spear trembled violently. A terrifying power flowed through the spear and into Xueqi's arm, causing his body to tremble. Bam! In the next moment, the sacred spear exploded. Xueqi's body shook and he retreated a few hundred meters. Blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. How can this be? The other two youths were dumbfounded. Even Xueqi's battle strength was not Lu Ming's match. How could this be possible? Let's go. Xueqi did not say a word and turned to leave. You think you can come and go as you wish? How can it be so easy? Lu Ming said coldly. He stepped forward and activated the wind origin technique. He instantly closed in on Xueqi. A terrifying fist force blasted towards Xueqi. Xueqi roared angrily and used all his strength to fight Lu Ming. However, although he was strong, he was still inferior to Lu Ming. In less than 10 moves, he was beaten by Lu Ming until he vomited blood. Senior Xueqi, we will avenge you. When the other youth saw this scene, he was so frightened that he left behind a sentence and charged forward with all his might, escaping without a trace. Hee, these are your senior and junior brothers? Lu Ming mocked. Xueqi roared angrily and tried his best to resist. However, under Lu Ming's chaotic domain, he was forced to retreat. Die! Lu Ming's punch broke through Xueqi's defense and was about to kill him. At this moment, a powerful aura suddenly erupted from Xueqi's body. A shadow appeared on Xueqi's body and an invisible force burst out. This is... Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. This force was very similar to the light sword that Lu Ming faced in the sword pagoda. That was the same level of power. Bang! Lu Ming was hit by this force and his body flew backward. Lu Ming, I will definitely kill you next time. Xueqi left behind a sentence and rushed into the depths of the passage. It turns out that Xueqi has also obtained an inheritance. Lu Ming frowned. Xueqi should have also obtained an inheritance. As he had just obtained the inheritance and had not refined it, this inheritance had the function of automatically protecting its owner. If it was refined, this function would disappear. Next time, if the inheritance cannot protect its owner, I will definitely kill you. A sharp light flashed in Lu Ming's eyes. Lu Ming, are you all right? Xueqi stepped forward and asked. I'm fine. Let's go. Chapter 1437. They continued to move forward. Although the black light in this passage was very powerful, it was mainly a threat to supremes or some weak emperors. The stronger ones could still block it. The three of them walked for another 1,000 miles or so and finally reached the end. The passage disappeared. In front of them was a flat land, but it was filled with gray fog. The fog drifted, greatly affecting one's vision. Some of the young men rushed into the mist and disappeared. Lu Ming and the other two did not hesitate and rushed into the fog. The fog was quiet. There was no sound at all, as if there were no living creatures. It was dead silent. Vaguely, only the heartbeats of the three people could be heard. However, after walking for a while, only one of the three people's heartbeats could be heard. Lu Ming turned his head and saw that Xueqi and Qiu had disappeared. What's going on? Just a moment ago, Xueqi and Qiu had been following behind him. Why did they suddenly disappear? Ying, brother Qiu. Lu Ming called out. His voice spread far and wide, but there was no response. Lu Ming searched for a while, but he did not see anyone. Just now, many young men had rushed in, but now, he did not see anyone. Could it be a formation? No, it's not a formation. Lu Ming observed carefully. There was no formation here at all. This area is very strange. It can affect one's senses. Perhaps they're not far away from me, but we're ignoring each other. Lu Ming thought to himself. There were many wonderful places in the world. No one had set up a formation, but they had functions that were even more mysterious than a formation. It seems that we can only meet up after walking out of this area. Thinking of this, Lu Ming determined the direction and walked straight ahead. However, not long after, Lu Ming stopped. He found that there was an invisible energy around him that was seeping into his body and slowly attacking his soul. Yes, there was an invisible energy here that could attack his soul. Even his primal chaos domain could not defend against it. Luckily, Lu Ming's soul had been refined inside the World Alchemy Calamity Bell when he was overcoming the Martial Dominator Tribulation, allowing him to strengthen his soul by more than 10 times. The attack was nothing to Lu Ming. Lu Ming ignored him and continued forward. Along the way, he noticed that there were many craters on the ground. Some of the craters looked like palm prints. Could it be that in the distant past, there was a great battle here? Lu Ming guessed. Bang! Lu Ming punched the ground, but the ground didn't move at all. There wasn't a single mark. So hard. Lu Ming sucked in a breath of cold air. The ground here was made from a kind of strange metal. It was tough and indestructible. Even with Lu Ming's strength, he couldn't leave a single mark on it. The thing that left the craters on the ground was definitely a terrifying existence. As Lu Ming continued forward, he found that the energy attacking his soul was getting stronger. Although it was nothing to Lu Ming's current soul strength, it was definitely a great challenge for the other geniuses. There's a strong fluctuation ahead. Suddenly, Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He found that there was a strong fluctuation coming from ahead. It seemed like there was an expert cultivating ahead. Lu Ming hesitated for a moment. He withdrew his aura and decided to go forward to take a look. Soon, a giant object appeared ahead. It was an eagle, a giant eagle. It was covered in golden feathers and was as big as a mountain. That kind of fluctuation was coming from this giant eagle. However, the giant golden eagle was obviously dead. There was no sign of life on it. However, the fluctuation was indeed terrifying. The closer he got, the scarier Lu Ming felt. The aura of a Saint Realm expert. Moreover, the fluctuation is more profound than that of an ordinary Saint Realm expert. Lu Ming thought. Lu Ming had sensed the aura of a heavenly mystic saint and the aura of Dragon God Valley's Elder Hong. However, they were nothing compared to this giant golden eagle. This giant golden eagle was definitely not just a bright saint, but a great saint or absolute saint when it was alive. There's a word. Suddenly, Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He found that there was a word under one of the giant golden eagle's wings. It was the word evil. Evil. What did it mean? Lu Ming didn't know. Moreover, Lu Ming didn't see any wounds around the giant eagle's body. He didn't know how it died. I wonder if I can keep this giant eagle. It's full of treasures. Lu Ming thought. He took out a higher quality storage ring and activated his true yuan. He let the storage ring fly above the giant eagle. A gravitational force was generated from the storage ring. To Lu Ming's surprise, Lu Ming easily put away the giant eagle's body. Haha, I've made a fortune. Lu Ming was overjoyed. He put away the storage ring and continued forward. This area was dead silent. It was as if Lu Ming was the only one in this vast world. This feeling would drive one crazy if one stayed here for too long. Moreover, there was an invisible energy that kept seeping into Lu Ming's body and attacking his soul. After walking for a long time, when Lu Ming took a step forward, the environment around him changed drastically. The fog disappeared and Lu Ming came to a platform. One step away, so close yet so far away. He walked out of the fog just like that. Voices came from ahead. Lu Ming looked and found that many people had gathered here. Qiu Yingying, Qiu Hao. Lu Ming saw the two of them at a glance. Lu Ming. The two of them saw Lu Ming and walked over happily. When did you pass through the fog? Lu Ming asked. We just arrived a while ago. Qiu Yingying explained. The two of them had encountered the same thing as Lu Ming. After walking into the fog, they were separated from the others. It was as if they were the only ones left in the world. There was also the energy that attacked the soul. They gritted their teeth and walked forward. They did not expect to pass through the fog so smoothly. However, they were different from Lu Ming. Lu Ming touched the giant eagle's body, but they did not touch anything. Lu Ming. At this moment, a deep voice was heard. 3 young men walked over and greeted Lu Ming. It was the 3 Yuan brothers. The 3 Yuan brothers were telepathic. When they joined forces, their strength was not weak. After entering the Great Emperor Mystic Realm, They had successfully broken through to the martial emperor realm. It was not strange for them to come here. What's going on in front? Lu Ming's gaze looked ahead. Many people stopped in front of him. It seemed that they were blocked. There's an abyss in front. It's blocking the way. Xueqi explained. Lu Ming walked closer to take a look. It was indeed an abyss that was 100 miles wide. There was a terrifying devouring force under the abyss. Once a person flew into the abyss, they would be swallowed and fall into the abyss. No one could escape. Chapter 1438. Lu Ming walked forward and found a stone bridge. This stone bridge led to the other side of the abyss. That's the Heavenly Path Stone. Lu Ming's pupils suddenly constricted, revealing a look of shock. That was because the stone bridge was covered with Heavenly Path stones. At a glance, he did not know how many of them there were. Countless Heavenly Path stones formed a stone bridge that was 100 miles long, leading to the other side of the abyss. Heavens, how many Heavenly Path stones were there? His heart twitched violently. Was this the work of the arch? It was too shocking. The Heavenly Path stones on the stone bridge can't be dug out at all. Someone tried before, but he was knocked down into the abyss. The eldest of the three Ruan brothers, Ruan Tian, explained. Lu Ming nodded. He had guessed that. Otherwise, with so many Heavenly Path stones in front of them, this place would have been flooded with blood. Many young people gathered at the head of the bridge, looking at the stone bridge with worried faces. Someone is on the bridge again. Xueqi whispered. At the head of the bridge, a young man stepped on the stone bridge. When he stepped on the stone bridge, his body trembled slightly as if he was under a terrifying pressure, but he gritted his teeth and continued forward. After a while, his body suddenly trembled, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His face turned pale. He hurriedly retreated from the stone bridge and let out a long breath. It still doesn't work. The young man sighed. Humph, what a piece of trash. Let me do it. A cold voice sounded. A young man walked out of the crowd and stepped on the stone bridge. Wang Xiao. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Wang Xiao's body emitted a sharp aura, like a sharp divine sword that could cut through everything. He walked forward step by step at a very fast speed. Soon, he had crossed more than half the distance. After crossing more than half the distance, he gradually slowed down, but it did not take long for him to cross the 100-mile stone bridge and disappear from everyone's sight. A leader is indeed powerful. Only prodigies with at least an inferior earth spirit body can cross this stone bridge. The Heavenly Path Chi on it is too powerful. Many people sighed. It's because of the Heavenly Path Chi. Lu Ming thought to himself. There were too many Heavenly Path stones on the stone bridge. The Heavenly Path Chi on the stone bridge was definitely terrifying. The Heavenly Path Chi was very useful for martial artists and inscriptionists. It could be used to comprehend the path and improve one's cultivation. However, this was referring to the Heavenly Tao aura. Within a certain range of concentration, if the Heavenly Tao aura was too concentrated, not only would it not be beneficial, it would instead be harmful. The powerful Heavenly Tao aura could crush people to death. Damn it, it wasn't easy for me to enter the Grey Emperor's palace. Could it be that I'm going to be blocked by a stone bridge just like that? But now, their path was blocked by a stone bridge. They were truly unwilling to accept this. More and more people tried, but most of them failed. Some tried to force their way through, but they were crushed to death and fell into the endless abyss. I'll give it a try. Lu Ming stepped forward. Xueqi, Ruan Tian, and the others did not stop him. They knew how strong Lu Ming was. The stone bridge could not do anything to Lu Ming. Lu Ming stepped forward and covered his body with the primal chaos domain. What a rich Heavenly Path Chi! Lu Ming's eyes flickered. The Heavenly Path Chi here was too strong. It was many times stronger than the Heavenly Path marks that Lu Ming had faced before. This strength was far beyond what they could bear. Not only could they not comprehend the path, but there was also a strong pressure on his body. This was the pressure of the Heavenly Path. However, Lu Ming's primal chaos domain shook, and the Heavenly Path Chi disappeared without a trace. Everything in the world comes from the primal chaos domain. The primal chaos domain is the emperor of thousands of domains. The Heavenly Path Chi is useless against the primal chaos domain. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Then, he continued forward. The stone bridge was very narrow, only allowing one person to pass. Lu Ming strode forward and soon crossed half of the bridge. However, at this time, Lu Ming suddenly turned around and went back the way he came. What's that guy doing? I saw that he was relaxed just now. I thought he would be able to pass. Why is he going back now? It didn't mean anything at the beginning. Maybe he was relaxed because he was going all out. It's normal for him to be tired now. That's true. After all, this stone bridge is not something that anyone can cross. Lu Ming's actions caused some people to discuss. Qiu Yingying, Qiu Hao, and the others were also surprised. Based on their understanding of Lu Ming, with Lu Ming's strength, it should not be a problem for him to cross the stone bridge. Why did he go back the way he came? Soon, Lu Ming reached the end of the bridge. Yingying, brother Qiu, come up. I'll bring you over, Lu Ming said. What? Qiu Yingying, Qiu Hao, and the 3 Yuan brothers were stunned. The others were also stunned. Lu Ming was going to bring someone over? How was that possible? It was difficult for others to cross alone. Even a prodigy like Wang Xiao had difficulty crossing the second half of the bridge. Now, Lu Ming said that he was going to bring someone over. It was unbelievable. Yingying. Lu Ming called again. Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao finally reacted. Okay. Qiu Yingying was the first to step forward. She walked in front of Lu Ming, and Qiu Hao stood behind Lu Ming. Stepping on the stone bridge meant that one's life was in danger, but they chose to believe in Lu Ming. Along the way, Lu Ming had brought them too many miracles. Brother Wan, I'll send Yingying and the others over first. I'll find you later, Lu Ming said to Wan Tian. Okay. Wan Tian nodded in a daze. Let's go. The chaotic domain enveloped Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao as the 3 of them stepped onto the stone bridge. Although the chaotic domain was magical, it was only level 1 now. Moreover, the stone bridge was very narrow and could only accommodate 1 person. Therefore, Lu Ming could not bring too many people at once. He could only bring 2 or 3 people. Therefore, he planned to send the 3 Yuan brothers over after sending Qiu Yingying and the others over. Everyone looked at Lu Ming. Some people sneered, thinking that Lu Ming would play with fire and burn himself. Lu Ming and the other 2 stepped onto the stone bridge. The powerful heavenly path aura outside pressed down on the chaotic domain, causing it to tremble. However, it resisted in the end. The 3 of them walked forward step by step. Soon, they surpassed the distance Lu Ming had walked and continued forward. Soon, the 3 of them successfully reached the other side. He did it. This person can actually bring people over. Unbelievable. This person must have some kind of treasure that can resist the heavenly path aura. Chapter 1439. Look, he's back. Someone shouted. In front of the stone bridge, a figure stepped forward. It was Lu Ming. Soon, Lu Ming returned to the starting point. Whoosh! A figure appeared in front of Lu Ming. It was a young man with fiery eyes. Brat, bring me over now. This young man was the one who sneered the most, thinking that Lu Ming would die on the bridge. Now that he saw that Lu Ming could really bring people over, he was the first to rush forward. Me too, bring me over. Bring me. One by one, the young men stepped forward and surrounded Lu Ming. I'm not free. Lu Ming glanced around indifferently. What do you mean by that? Not free? Today, even if you're not free, you have to be free. If you don't bring me over, don't go over yourself today. The young man who spoke first had a cold expression on his face. A cold aura locked onto Lu Ming. The others also had unfriendly expressions. Indeed, you want to go over and get the great emperor's treasure. How dare you leave us here? Someone spoke, which almost made Lu Ming laugh. You don't have the ability to go over, yet you're blaming Lu Ming. If you can't get it, you can't let Lu Ming get it either. Get lost, Lu Ming roared. A terrifying shockwave spread out in all directions. Some of the weaker cultivators couldn't help but retreat. Everyone, let's join forces. With so many of us, we can take him down. Let's control him and let him send us over one by one. The young man who spoke first yelled. Boom, boom, boom. Auras burst out. There were at least a few hundred people present. Each of them stared at Lu Ming with unfriendly eyes. Their auras suppressed Lu Ming. How can you people be like this? How can you force us to bring him or not? Lu Ming, don't worry about us. You cross the bridge first. Ruan Tian's deep voice resounded. Brat, surrender obediently. If you cross the bridge alone, your friends will fall into the endless abyss. The young man who spoke first said coldly. Hee hee. Lu Ming smiled faintly. He looked at the young man and said, You brought this upon yourself. As soon as his voice fell, Lu Ming's figure moved and appeared in front of the young man. The young man's face fell, and he wanted to retreat, but Lu Ming waved his hand, and his primal chaos domain spread out, forming a giant primal chaos hand that crushed the young man's defenses and grabbed him. Let go of me. What are you doing? Let me warn you, my senior brother is the leader of the Heaven King Palace. The young man shouted, threatening Lu Ming. I'll send you down to the abyss to play. Lu Ming sneered. You dare? Everyone, let's attack together and take him down. The young man roared loudly, encouraging the others. Put him down. You're courting death. More than 10 people roared as they charged at Lu Ming. More than 10 attacks fell on Lu Ming. Lightning Element Technique. Lu Ming transformed his primal chaos domain into a lightning domain and executed the lightning element technique. 10 lightning spears appeared in the air and pierced through the air. Puff, puff. More than 10 young men were penetrated by the lightning spears and died on the spot, killing more than 10 first-layer martial dominator realm cultivators with a single attack, causing the others to be dumbfounded. They finally realized that not only was Lu Ming able to cross the bridge by himself, he was also able to bring people over with him. After killing more than 10 young men as an example, the others did not dare to attack. Lu Ming grabbed the young man's hand and pulled him out of the abyss. No! The young man screamed as he stared at the abyss below him. I'll send you down. Lu Ming said coldly as he reached out his hand. The young man was immediately devoured by the devouring force of the abyss and fell into the abyss. Only cries of agony could be heard. Who else wants to go down? I don't mind sending you on your way. Lu Ming scanned the crowd. No one dared to make a sound. Lu Ming's combat strength was more than enough to crush them. Brother Wan, let's get on the bridge. Lu Ming said. The 3 Wan brothers nodded. They stood in a row with Lu Ming and moved forward. Soon, they crossed the stone bridge. In front of the stone bridge was a stone wall that blocked the way. The stone wall was indestructible and could not be broken. There was a light door on the stone wall. It was the only way out. Those who had crossed the bridge had obviously left through this light door. Let's go in, Lu Ming said. Everyone nodded and stepped into the light door together. The space trembled. In the next moment, Lu Ming arrived in a stone room. Lu Ming looked around and found that he was the only one in the stone room. Qiu Yingying and the others were nowhere to be seen. It seemed that the door was a teleportation portal. They had been teleported here and scattered. Whoosh! Suddenly, Lu Ming felt a sharp qi slashing at Lu Ming. Without the slightest hesitation, Lu Ming took a step back and retreated rapidly. However, the sharp qi was also shockingly fast. It followed Lu Ming and slashed at him. What's that? Lu Ming frowned. He could only vaguely see a black light slashing at him. As for what it was too fast for him to see clearly. Get lost! Lu Ming yelled and threw a punch at him. Clang! The sound of metal clashing was heard. Lu Ming's violent fist force crushed forward and finally repelled the thing that was slashing at him. At this moment, Lu Ming finally saw what attacked him. A pair of wings. A pair of black wings. They were not the wings of a monster but made of strange metal. Every single feather on the wings was black and shiny. They were filled with sharpness, like sharp divine swords. Lu Ming thought of Hai Pengtian from the continent of divine ruins. Hai Pengtian also had a pair of wings, which was an emperor's spiritual weapon. However, that pair of wings was trash compared to the one in front of him. The pair in front of him was a divine weapon. Lu Ming took a liking to her at first glance. I'm lucky to encounter a divine weapon as soon as I teleported here. Lu Ming smiled. He stepped forward and pounced at the black wings. He reached out his hand and was about to grab the black wings. Whoosh! The black wings spread open and slashed at Lu Ming like 2 divine swords. They were extremely sharp. Lu Ming punched and used the heaven-suppressing hell skill. He covered it with the chaotic field and bombarded the wings. With a clang, the wings were sent flying again. Whoosh! After the wings were sent flying, they flapped and tried to escape. You have some intelligence. However, you can't escape from me. Lu Ming pressed forward with one hand. The chaotic field exploded and covered the entire stone room. No matter how the black wings flew, they could not escape from the chaotic field. Shrink! The chaotic field began to shrink and finally trapped the black wings. Refine! Then, Lu Ming's ethereal force surged into the black wings and began to refine them. Chapter 1440. So it's the sacred weapon of Ming. Black wings. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. The sacred weapon of Ming was Ming Shang's personal weapon. Above that, there were great sacred weapons and absolute sacred weapons. After that round of refinement, Lu Ming had only grasped the basics of this winged sacred weapon. With his current cultivation, it was impossible for him to completely refine it. He could only slowly refine it in the future and deepen his grasp of the black wings. With a toss of the black wings automatically flew behind Lu Ming and sank into Lu Ming's back. The next moment, Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Whoosh! On his back, the black wings spread out, making Lu Ming look as if he had grown a pair of wings out of thin air. Swoosh! With a flap of the black wings, Lu Ming's figure disappeared from the spot at an astonishing speed. Lu Ming circled around the stone room dozens of times before returning to his original spot. Not bad. Lu Ming was very satisfied with the black wings. He had the black wings. If combined with the wind origin technique and the air frozen bead, his speed would definitely be greatly increased. At the same time, the black wings also had a powerful attack power. Moreover, the wings could wrap around the entire body and had a powerful defensive ability. This sacred weapon could be said to be one of the few sacred weapons with all kinds of functions. If sold, the price would be more than 10 times more expensive than other sacred weapons of the same level. With a thought, the black wings retracted and sank into his skin, disappearing. Next, Lu Ming looked around. Apart from the black wings and the passageway in front of him, there was nothing else in this stone room. Lu Ming stepped forward and walked towards the passageway. Ka! Suddenly, there was a cry. At the entrance of the passageway, a huge black goshawk suddenly appeared and swooped towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming's expression changed. This goshawk was of course not real. It was condensed from some kind of energy. More importantly, it appeared too suddenly. Lu Ming subconsciously retreated rapidly. However, he found that the goshawk did not chase after him. Instead, it floated in the air and looked at Lu Ming. Young man, go back. Don't continue forward. Otherwise, there will be a great disaster. The goshawk suddenly spoke. Who are you? Lu Ming asked. It doesn't matter who I am. Go back, there's no road ahead. The goshawk spoke again. Disaster? No path. I don't believe it. If I don't try, how will I know that there is no path? Lu Ming smiled and stepped forward. Along the way, they had encountered so many obstacles. How could Lu Ming be blocked by a goshawk? The goshawk seemed to sigh. Then it flapped its wings and pounced on Lu Ming. Boom! Lu Ming activated his primal chaos domain and punched out. The violent fist force crushed out, causing the stone room to rumble and shake. This is primal chaos domain. Goshawk cried out in surprise. Then, it flapped its wings rapidly and a terrifying gale swept out. The gale collided with Lu Ming's fist, creating bursts of explosive sounds. Finally, the gale disappeared, and Lu Ming could not help but retreat a few steps. What a powerful force! Lu Ming's face turned solemn. It seems that I can't do it without using my full strength. Lu Ming thought to himself. However, at this moment, something strange happened. Suddenly, another figure appeared in the void. It was a black shadow shrouded in black light, and its specific appearance could not be seen clearly. As soon as it appeared, it pounced on the goshawk. The black shadow and the goshawk engaged in an intense battle. Young man, I'll hold him back. You go over. An old voice came from the black shadow. It sounded gentle and comfortable. Don't go over. You have to hear me, the goshawk shouted. Boom! The black shadow pounced on the goshawk and launched an even more violent attack. The battle was intense. Lu Ming furrowed his brows. What was going on with the goshawk and the black shadow? Was it a checkpoint here? Or a test? Why did one let him go over and the other not? Maybe it's just a test. I'll pass. Lu Ming made up his mind. Since he had already come this far, it was impossible for Lu Ming to give up and leave just because of a few words from a goshawk. Whoosh! Lu Ming activated the wind origin technique and the power of the air-frozen bead surged. Taking advantage of the gap between the goshawk and the black shadow, his figure flashed and rushed into the passage and disappeared. Boom! The goshawk and the black shadow exchanged a blow and both retreated. Sigh! The goshawk looked at Lu Ming's back and sighed. Hee hee, Emperor Tsong, it's impossible for you to stop them. You've lost this round. A cold and harsh laughter came from the black shadow. It was completely different from the gentle voice just now. However, Lu Ming could no longer hear those words. He walked along the passage and soon, light appeared in front of him. He had reached the end of the passage. Clang! Boom! In front of him, there was a violent explosion and the sound of metal colliding. Someone was fighting. Lu Ming slowed down and rushed over from the entrance of the passage. Whoosh! As soon as Lu Ming rushed out, he saw a small black flag flying toward him. There was demonic chi on the small flag. Emperor-level spiritual weapon. Ownerless. Lu Ming thought. Get lost. Suddenly, there was a loud roar in front of him. It was very domineering. A huge palm that was completely formed by demonic chi grabbed at Lu Ming and the small flag. Humph! Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. He threw a punch and the huge palm exploded. Lu Ming reached out and grabbed the small black flag in his hand. Kid, how dare you stop me? A domineering voice sounded. In front of Lu Ming, a young man looked at him coldly and his body was full of demonic chi. This is... Lu Ming glanced at the young man and skipped over him, looking elsewhere. It was a huge hall that was incomparably spacious. In the void, there were beams of treasure light flying around. Among them, there were many young men chasing after these beams of treasure light. Emperor-level spiritual weapons, and even sacred weapons. Lu Ming was astounded. Most of the treasures flying in the air were ruler-level spiritual weapons, and there were more than 100 of them. Among them, there were also saint weapons and even medicinal pills. More than 10 young men were flying in the air, chasing after the treasures. Occasionally, they would even fight one another because of the treasures. How powerful! Lu Ming discovered that these young men possessed powerful cultivations. They were all second-layer martial dominators. Lu Ming saw a few familiar faces among them. The leader of the Dragon God Valley, He Yu, the leader of the Nine Heaven Sword Sect, Wang Xiao, the leader of the Heavenly God Sect, Shi Tian, the leader of the Sword of Life and Death Sect, Luo Xiang. They were the leaders of their respective sections. Indeed, those who were able to make it here were extremely powerful. Kid, how dare you ignore me? In front of Lu Ming, the young man with a strong demonic chi pointed his finger at Lu Ming. A black finger that looked like the finger of a demon pierced through the void and stabbed in Lu Ming's direction with a terrifying might. If the finger were to hit, Lu Ming would die for sure. Such a domineering person, trying to take someone's life. Lu Ming's expression became cold as he threw out a punch. Bang! Chapter 1441. Break for me. A sinister look flashed across the eyes of the demonic youth, but in the next moment, his expression changed drastically. He could feel a terrifying power coming from his finger. This power was like an avalanche, like an ancient divine mountain crashing into his finger. Crack! His finger made a cracking sound as it was deformed. He roared and retreated rapidly, taking more than 10 steps back as he looked at Lu Ming with a sinister expression. In the previous move, Lu Ming had broken his finger bone with a punch. After taking a look at Lu Ming, there was a trace of graveness in this person's eyes. He did not continue to attack. Instead, his figure swayed and he dashed toward an Emperor-level spirit weapon combat sword. His domain spread out and shrouded the Emperor-level spirit weapon combat sword. Suppress! At this moment, Lu Ming also made his move. With a wave of his hand, the chaotic domain spread out and suppressed the 2 Emperor-level combat weapons. Then he put them away. Is this a treasure trove? Lu Ming looked around and saw the light flying in the sky. A thought flashed across Lu Ming's mind. In the next moment, Lu Ming made his move again without hesitation. There were more than 10 youths present, and each of them had a strong cultivation. If he continued to delay, he would not have a share. Whoosh! Whoosh! More than 10 youths made their moves at an extremely fast speed. There were fewer and fewer lights flying in the sky as they put away the Emperor-level combat weapons. In a short time, Lu Ming had obtained 8 Emperor-level combat weapons. Get lost! Boom! In the sky there were more people fighting. 2 youths were fighting over a saint weapon. However, the two of them were wary of each other. When they saw the saint weapon flying away, they stopped and chased after the saint weapon. Soon, the emperor-level combat weapons were almost all collected. There were only a few saint weapons left in the sky and a few jade boxes flying in the sky. Those jade boxes were the fastest. They were like bolts of lightning that streaked across the sky. It was difficult to stop them. Whoosh! Lu Ming's figure soared into the sky and pounced on a saint weapon. This sacred weapon was a jade bracelet filled with dense devil qi. Lu Ming thought of Xian Yanqing. This jade bracelet was very suitable for Xian Yanqing. Scram! Lu Ming wasn't the only one who was interested in this jade bracelet. There were two other youths as well. One of them was the demonic youth who had attacked Lu Ming before. The other person was dressed in a green robe and had an evil smile on his face. The green-robed youth made a grabbing motion with his hand, and streams of green mist spread toward Lu Ming. As soon as the fog appeared, a disgusting smell filled the air. Poison gas. This poisonous gas was extremely poisonous. However, what Lu Ming was least afraid of was lethal poison. The power of devouring enveloped Lu Ming's entire body. Ignoring the green mist, Lu Ming charged through it and sent a palm strike at the green-robed youth. The green-robed youth didn't expect Lu Ming to completely ignore the poisonous gas. His expression changed. He waved his hand and a swarm of poisonous insects appeared in front of him. The poisonous insects formed a shield in front of him. Lu Ming's palm struck down and a large number of poisonous insects exploded. The green-robed youth trembled and retreated dozens of meters. Bam! Then, Lu Ming's leg was like a steel whip, sweeping toward the young man with a sinister demonic aura, forcing him to retreat. Lu Ming's right hand grabbed the jade bracelet. Buzz buzz! The jade bracelet in Lu Ming's hand was still vibrating non-stop. What a strong spirituality! Lu Ming was delighted. The stronger the spirituality of a sacred weapon, the higher the grade and the more precious it was. For example, Lu Ming's lightning cauldron and air-frozen pearl were definitely extraordinary. Hand over the sacred weapon and I'll spare your life. The green-robed youth said and stared coldly at Lu Ming. If you want to die, come here. Lu Ming's simple reply was extremely domineering. The green-robed youth's face was gloomy and cold, killing intent emanated from his body. He was one of the 13 top forces that had entered the Great Emperor's mystic realm, the leader of the Desire Poison sect. He was very strong and was good at using poison. Even the leaders of the other sects were wary of him. Now, Lu Ming actually dared to speak to him in such a manner. Courting death. In his heart, he had already sentenced Lu Ming to death. 10,000 poisons massacre. The young man in the green robe shouted coldly. His figure moved and he pounced on Lu Ming. He waved his palm and densely packed poisonous insects appeared. These poisonous insects had hard carapaces on their bodies and they constantly spurted poisonous gas from their mouths. Moreover, what was even more amazing was that these poisonous insects could actually combine. Countless poisonous insects formed a combat weapon and charged at Lu Ming. In the air, more than 10 combat weapons appeared. They were all made of poisonous insects. Some were swords, some were sabers. The similarity was that all of them were filled with poison. Devour! Lu Ming stretched out his palms. The terrifying devouring power shrouded all the poisonous insects in it. The devouring power exploded and the dense poisonous gas was instantly absorbed by Lu Ming. The poisonous insects were also instantly sucked dry of their blood essence. Their blood fell to the ground like raindrops. What a powerful poisonous gas! After devouring so much poisonous gas, Lu Ming felt his body go numb. Lu Ming could not help but sigh at the power of the poisonous gas. This was the first time Lu Ming's body went numb from a poisonous gas. In the past, any poisonous gas would be devoured by Lu Ming's devouring power and would be refined. It would not affect Lu Ming at all. This is the Yuan continent after all. This poisonous gas reminded Lu Ming. After all, this was the Yuan continent and not the mainland of the divine ruins. The laws of heaven and earth were perfect and everything in heaven and earth was different from the mainland of the divine ruins. It was possible that some terrifying poisonous gas could be born here. Even the devouring power could not devour the poisonous gas. Lu Ming warned himself that he could not be careless when dealing with poisonous gas in the future. Of course, the green-robed youth's poisonous gas was nothing to Lu Ming. It only made Lu Ming's body go numb for a moment before it was refined by the devouring power. The green-robed youth looked at Lu Ming in disbelief. His poisonous gas was actually devoured by Lu Ming. How was this possible? Even experts with a much higher cultivation than him wouldn't dare to touch his poisonous gas, let alone swallow it into their bodies. You want to use this poisonous gas to poison people? Ridiculous. Lu Ming smiled indifferently and took a step forward. The terrifying chaotic domain pressed down on the green-robed youth. The green-robed youth's face changed drastically and he tried his best to resist. However, his poisonous gas had lost its power and his combat strength was much weaker than the other leaders. He was crushed by Lu Ming's chaotic domain. He vomited blood and his body flew far away. Many of his bones were broken. Boom, boom. At this moment, the battle for the sacred weapons had reached its climax. More than 10 youths fought fiercely over a few sacred weapons. In the end, the sacred weapons were taken by different people. Luo Xiang of the Life and Death Sword sect had become stronger after obtaining the Sword Dao inheritance. His sword qi pierced through the air and cut through everything. He took a sacred weapon battle sword. Xueqi of the Heavenly Divine sect was like a deity. He also took a sacred weapon. He Yu of the Dragon God Valley had the Blood Dragon battle body and was extremely powerful. He also took a sacred weapon. Chapter 1442. Bang! At this moment, a flying jade box was accidentally smashed by someone. Suddenly, a palm-sized translucent armor appeared in the air, flickering with a strange fluctuation. That's a spiritual god defensive treasure. Someone cried out in alarm. Everyone's gazes were fixed on the jade armor. Their eyes were burning with passion. A spiritual god defensive treasure. It's a spiritual god defensive treasure. No matter how strong a martial artist's spiritual body was, the spiritual god was the most fragile and fatal weakness of a martial artist. If one were to encounter dangers that could harm one's soul in secret realms, ruins, or forbidden lands, a spiritual god defensive treasure could save one's life. This kind of treasure was extremely difficult to refine as it was linked to one's soul. It was priceless and could not be bought on the market. It's mine. It's mine. More than 10 young men moved at the same time and rushed toward the jade armor. Get lost. It's you. Boom, boom, boom. More than 10 people fought fiercely. Sword qi and saber light crisscrossed. Everyone wanted to get their hands on the jade armor. For a moment, no one could get it. Whoosh! A pair of black wings appeared on Lu Ming's back. At the same time, he used the wind origin technique and disappeared. In the next moment, he broke through the obstacles and appeared near the jade armor. It's you? A young man hollered. Sacred light surged toward Lu Ming like a tide. It was the leader of the Heavenly Divinity sect, Xueqi. Get lost! Lu Ming shouted and stepped forward. He used the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps and the chaotic domain burst out. The divine energy on Xueqi's body trembled violently. His body trembled and he was sent flying by Lu Ming. Whoosh! Lu Ming stretched out his hand and formed a big hand to grab the jade armor. Don't even think about it. The rest of the people were engaged in a chaotic battle. However, the moment they saw Lu Ming approaching the jade armor and was about to obtain it, they attacked Lu Ming one after another. At least 5 or 6 attacks were launched toward Lu Ming. These people were the leaders of their sections. Their cultivation had reached the 2nd layer martial royal realm and their attacks were terrifying. It was even more terrifying when they joined forces. Block it! The black wings on Lu Ming's back closed together and enveloped Lu Ming. At the same time, the primal chaos domain spread out and covered his entire body. Dong! Dong! An intense explosion resounded. The primal chaos domain and the black wings shook violently. However, it was blocked by Lu Ming in the end. At the same time, Lu Ming grabbed the jade armor and put it into his storage ring. Hand over the treasure. Otherwise die. Cold voices rang out one after another. At least 6 auras locked onto Lu Ming. Lu Ming glanced around and saw 6 youths surrounding Lu Ming. Xueqi, He Yu, Wang Xiao, the demonic youth, the green-robed youth, and a burly youth. The others, such as Luo Xiang, stood to the side and did not make a move. I'm afraid the 6 of you aren't enough to take my life. Lu Ming smiled indifferently. And Lu Ming looked at He Yu and said, We're from the same sect. Are you going to attack me too? This treasure isn't something you can handle. Hand it to me and I'll report it to the sect and give you a reward. He Yu said coldly. Hand it to you? Haha, what a hypocrite. If you want it, just say it. Lu Ming mocked. Humph. Then I'll test you and see what you're made of. He Yu said coldly. His body was filled with blood-red light and a dragon's roar resounded. A layer of blood-red dragon scales appeared on the surface of his skin. Bam! He Yu took a step forward and his entire body was like a human-shaped dragon as he pounced towards Lu Ming. His hand also became like a dragon's claw as he grabbed at Lu Ming. Blood Dragon War Body. I'd like to see how strong it is. Lu Ming threw out a punch. Bam! The fist collided with the dragon's claw and there was a dull explosion. Then, He Yu's body trembled and he was forced to retreat continuously. This person is so strong. He can actually force He Yu to retreat. The eyes of the surrounding youths froze. Among them, He Yu was the strongest in close combat. No one was a match for He Yu in close combat. However, Lu Ming had forced He Yu to retreat. It was simply shocking. We'd better attack together. This person is demonic and not easy to deal with. Xueqi said with a cold murderous intent. Lu Ming was someone he had to kill. I think so too. He Yu, you don't have any objections, right? Wang Xiao said and looked at He Yu. It's fine. This person has no respect for the law and even dares to hurt the disciples of the Divine Dragon Valley. He's lawless and deserves to be killed. He Yu said coldly. Haha, so many of you against one person and you're still speaking so righteously. How despicable. A disdainful voice was heard, but it wasn't Lu Ming but Luo Xiang. Humph. Xueqi and the others' eyes turned cold, but they didn't say anything. Attack. Xueqi said and made the first move. Sacred light burst out from his body and formed a sacred spear, which he threw at Lu Ming. At the same time, Wang Xiao released sword aura from his palm. An extremely sharp sword gleam cut through the void and slashed toward Lu Ming. Following this, the young man with a sinister demonic aura and the young man in a green robe attacked at the same time. Together with He Yu, the six of them had both close combat and long-range attacks. Since they were all peerless geniuses, their strength far surpassed that of ordinary emperors. Even a fourth-layer martial royal realm expert would be killed instantly when the six of them worked together. Even a fifth-layer martial royal realm expert would have to retreat. Kill! Lu Ming yelled as he flapped his black wings and dashed toward one of them. Lu Ming wouldn't stand in the middle like a fool and be treated as a target. If they wanted to fight, they would defeat them one by one. Lu Ming chose the young man in a green robe. Among the six of them, the young man in a green robe posed the least threat to Lu Ming. Lu Ming dodged 3 of the attacks and took 2 of them head-on. He arrived in front of the young man in a green robe and activated his third bloodline. Streams of energy flowed into Lu Ming's body, further strengthening Lu Ming's strength. He reached out with his left hand and unleashed a devouring force that engulfed the young man in a green robe. At the same time, he threw a punch with his right hand. The hell-suppressing heaven skill combined with the chaotic domain was unleashed. Bang! The space trembled and formed a terrifying fist intent that slammed toward the young man in a green robe. The young man in a green robe's poisonous aura was devoured by the devouring force. Following this, Lu Ming's fist intent landed on him. The young man in a green robe let out a cry of agony as his body was blasted apart by Lu Ming's fist intent and turned into a cloud of green mist. The next moment, the mist gathered and tried to reform his body. The young man in a green robe spiritual body was a poison spiritual body among the medium earth spiritual bodies. Like a flame spiritual body, it had a strong vitality and could turn into poisonous gas to reduce the cold. Chapter 1443. Destroy! Lu Ming pressed his palm down and the chaotic domain spread out, enveloping the green-robed youth and refining him. Save me! The green fog tumbled as the green-robed youth screamed. Of course, his voice was emitted by energy vibrations. Let him go! A loud roar was heard and a demonic aura surged. A small pagoda with demonic aura flew out from the youth's head and rapidly grew in size, suppressing Lu Ming. Sacred weapon! Without a doubt, this small pagoda was also a sacred weapon. These people were the leaders of their respective sections. To be able to come this far, they had naturally gained a lot. Each of them had obtained a sacred weapon. The youth with the demonic aura was called Mo Jie, and he came from the Sky Universe Demon Sect. His small pagoda was the sacred weapon he had obtained when he entered the Great Emperor's mystic realm. Although he couldn't unleash much of the power of a sacred weapon with his cultivation, it was still stronger than an emperor-grade spiritual weapon. The small pagoda grew to the size of a small mountain and pressed down on Lu Ming. There was a terrifying suction force under the pagoda that seemed to want to suck Lu Ming in. Shwa! The black feather wing on Lu Ming's back flapped out and rapidly grew in size. It slashed towards the small pagoda like a blade. Dang! The small pagoda shook and demonic aura tumbled as it was sent flying. However, the black feather wing was suppressed by the small pagoda and flew back. Boom! Boom! Wang! Wang! At this moment, a powerful aura rose from He Yu, Wang Xiao, Xueqi, and the burly youth. Each of them had a battle weapon floating out from their bodies. They were all sacred weapons. They had all used their sacred weapons to kill Lu Ming. Lu Ming's face turned serious. If he didn't use his sacred weapons and fought with his own strength, Lu Ming wouldn't be afraid even if he was surrounded by 6 experts. He might even be able to win. However, since all of them had used their sacred weapons, their strength was reduced. It would become a clash between sacred weapons. This wasn't good for Lu Ming. Wang! Lu Ming's glabella lit up and the lightning cauldron floated out. Pang! At this moment, a sword light flashed in the sky, and a jade box was shattered. A jade talisman flew out of the jade box. He Yu and company besieged Lu Ming, but the others were not watching the show. They were chasing after the 2 remaining jade boxes in the sky. The jade box from before contained a jade armor. It was clear that the treasure in the jade box was even more precious. As soon as the jade talisman appeared, the remaining few people began to fight over it. He Yu, Xueqi, and the others' faces paled. I'll spare him this time, Xueqi said. He was the first to rush into the sky and participate in the struggle for the jade talismans. When the others saw this, they all went to fight for the jade talismans. Lu Ming's expression was calm, and he didn't participate. Instead, he looked at the last jade box. This jade box was the fastest, dancing in the air like a bolt of lightning. Whoosh! Lu Ming suddenly made a move. He clawed out with his palm, and a large hand formed to grab the jade box. However, the jade box was extremely agile, and in a flash, it dodged Lu Ming's palm. Then, Lu Ming's figure flickered as he executed the wind origin art, chasing after the jade box at lightning speed. However, the jade box emitted a bright light, and its speed suddenly increased, leaving Lu Ming in the dust. Fuck! Lu Ming cursed inwardly. How could a jade box be faster than him? Was there any justice in this world? Lu Ming chased after the jade box. On the other side, the battle for the jade talisman had already been decided. In the end, the jade talisman was obtained by a peerless woman. Xueqi and the others' eyes flickered, but they didn't continue to fight for the jade talisman. It was obvious that they were wary of this woman. At this time, everyone's attention was on the last jade box. Then, everyone made a move. Their figures dashed toward the jade box, but the jade box was incomparably agile. It flickered in the air, evading everyone's attacks. Even when someone used a holy artifact, it was useless. I suggest that we spread out in all directions of the stone room, and use our domains to envelop the stone room. This way, the jade box has nowhere to run. Someone suggested. All right. I have no objections. Let's fight for the jade box after we get it. Someone else said. Everyone had no objections. Their figures flickered, and they spread out in all directions. There were a total of 13 people. Originally, the 13 leaders of the top sects, including Lu Ming, had a total of 14 people. However, the green-robed young man was killed by Lu Ming, and now there were only 13 people left. Bas, bas, bas. Each of the 13 cultivators unleashed a domain, which expanded rapidly and slowly shrouded the entire stone chamber. The jade box's range of movement became smaller and smaller. In the end, it had no choice but to be shrouded by the domain. Haha, it's mine. A young man was overjoyed. It was Xueqi. In the end, the jade box was shrouded by his domain. Come here. Xueqi shouted, and his domain shrunk rapidly. The jade box glowed and tried to escape. Then with a bang, the jade box exploded, and the thing inside was revealed. It was actually a pill. On it, there was a bright fluorescent light, and a strange phenomenon appeared, surrounded by the aura of the Great Tao. When they saw the pill, everyone's eyes widened. The Breakthrough Sage Pill. It's the Breakthrough Sage Pill. This Breakthrough Sage Pill is mine. Mo was the first to shout. The others also revealed a blazing light in their eyes. It was the Breakthrough Sage Pill. Even Lu Ming's heart was burning with excitement. The Breakthrough Sage Pill could help one break through to the Martial Sage realm. It was extremely difficult for a Martial King to break through to the Martial Sage realm. There were many people at the peak of the Martial King realm in Yuan continent. For example, there were many experts at the peak of the Martial King realm in the 13 top sects in Song province. However, there were very few martial sages. A martial saint was considered an expert in the primordial continent. However, even top geniuses like Xueqi and Yu were not confident that they could break through to the martial sage realm. In history, there were many outstanding geniuses who had reached the peak of the Martial King realm early on, but they could not break through to the Martial Sage realm. They were stuck at the peak of the Martial King realm for their entire lives, and died when their lifespan was exhausted. The Breakthrough Sage Pill could increase one's chances of breaking through to the Martial Sage realm by 30%. 30% was a terrifying probability. It would make countless experts at the peak of the Martial King realm fight for it. Especially for top geniuses like them. If the probability was increased by 30%, they would be confident that they could break through to the Martial Sage realm in the future. Don't even think about it. The Breakthrough Sage Pill happens to be in my realm. It is fated to be with me. Xueqi shouted and shrank his realm. He wanted to snatch the Breakthrough Sage Pill. However, the Breakthrough Sage Pill seemed to have a mind of its own. With a tremble, it broke through Xueqi's realm and escaped from Xueqi's control. It's mine. The others flew up and pounced on the Breakthrough Sage Pill. Various rays of light condensed into large hands and grabbed at the Breakthrough Sage Pill. However, the Breakthrough Sage Pill emitted rays of light. It flew past and pierced through the large hands, causing them to miss. Swoosh! Lu Ming performed the wind origin skill and flapped his black wings. He was as fast as lightning as he pounced on the Breakthrough Sage Pill. In an instant, he appeared a few meters away from the Breakthrough Sage Pill. Chapter 1444. However, to Lu Ming's surprise, although the Break Sage Elixir was stopped for a moment, it was only for a moment. The Break Sage Elixir pierced through the giant hand that Lu Ming had formed. Even the giant hand formed by the chaotic domain could not stop the Break Sage Elixir. The level of my chaotic domain is still too low. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He knew that it was not because the chaotic domain was useless, but because the level of his chaotic domain was too low. It was only a level 1 domain, which was why it could not stop the Break Sage Elixir. Subsequently, the others made their moves, but none of them managed to get the Break Sage Elixir. Suddenly, Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Bubbles and Dandan appeared on Lu Ming's shoulder. The two of them were still burping, and their mouths were filled with medicinal fragrance. Another spiritual elixir? As soon as Dandan appeared, its eyes rolled around. Dandan, Bubbles, help me get the Break Sage Elixir. Lu Ming transmitted his voice to Dandan and Bubbles. Chirp chirp. As soon as Lu Ming finished his words, Bubbles waved its pair of small claws outward. As the bubbles danced, space began to surge like waves. Dang! The Break Sage Elixir was flying, but suddenly it seemed to have hit a hard wall, making a loud thud. Bubbles had done something to the space and froze it. Lu Ming was overjoyed. Bubbles was indeed a space-time spirit mouse. It could control time and space. Even in Yuan continent, where space was extremely stable, Bubbles could still control it. Bubbles waved its claws and controlled the space to form a space box, sealing the Break Sage Elixir inside. As for Lu Ming, he dashed over. Stop him! Wang Xiao shouted, and a sword radiance slashed at Lu Ming. Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. He waved his hand and dispersed the sword radiance. The mountain river diagram appeared between his eyebrows. He wanted to keep the Break Sage Elixir into the mountain river diagram. But at this moment, the Saint Breaking Pill shone brightly. The light was like a sharp sword, breaking through the frozen space formed by the bubble in one fell swoop. Then, like a bolt of lightning, it rushed to the side of the stone room. At the side of the stone room, there was a passage. The Breakthrough Sage Pill rushed directly into the passage. Where do you think you're going? Lu Ming used the wind element technique. With a flap of his black wings, he flew towards the tunnel like a bolt of lightning. Chase! Behind him, the others also chased after him. Dandan, stop them! Lu Ming transmitted his voice to Dandan. Leave it to me! Dandan grinned. Whoosh! When Lu Ming rushed into the tunnel, Dandan opened its mouth and a light flashed. A shield condensed and blocked the entrance of the tunnel. The first to arrive was Xueqi. His fist landed on the shield with a loud bang, but the shield did not budge. "Damn it!" Xueqi roared. Then, the others also arrived and launched their attacks. However, they could not break the tortoiseshell shield in a short time. During this period of time, Dandan had swallowed too many spiritual herbs, as well as a few half-saint herbs from before. Her injuries had long recovered, and she had even advanced. The tortoiseshell shield that he had condensed with all his strength would not be broken so easily. "Damn it, the core is inside. Break the tortoiseshell. Let's attack together." Anxious voices sounded. Xueqi, Wang Xiao, and the others joined forces to attack. The tortoiseshell shield vibrated. It would not be long before it was broken by them. However, it was enough for Lu Ming to block it for a while. After Lu Ming rushed into the passage, he did not stop and chased after the breakthrough sage pill at an extremely fast speed. "Chirp chirp." Bubble cried and suddenly flew out from Lu Ming's shoulder. It opened its mouth and a transparent bubble suddenly appeared, enveloping the breakthrough sage pill. The breakthrough sage pill shone and wanted to break through, but it could not break through for a while. This transparent bubble not only contained the space domain, but also the time domain. Bubble flew over and swallowed the transparent bubble. Its furry body flashed and it returned to Lu Ming's shoulder. Then, it opened its mouth obediently and the breakthrough sage pill flew out. Lu Ming grabbed the shang-breaking elixir in his hands. "Lu Ming, I'll seal it," Dandan said. Then she waved her claws. Dense inscriptions appeared and wrapped around the saint-breaking elixir, forming a sealing formation. Not only could it prevent the saint-breaking elixir from flying around, but it could also prevent the loss of its medicinal efficacy. Breakthrough sage pill. Lu Ming revealed a smile. He took out a jade box and put the shang-breaking elixir into a storage ring. The breakthrough sage pill was priceless. For those who were stuck at the peak of the martial royal realm and could not break through, it was more precious than any holy weapon. Those people were willing to buy a breakthrough sage pill even if they had to sell their family's fortune. Of course, Lu Ming did not plan to sell it. It would be useful to keep it with him. After putting away the breakthrough sage pill, Lu Ming looked ahead. There seemed to be light in front of the passage. "We should be close to the core of the great emperor's palace," Lu Ming thought and stepped forward. As for Dandan and Bubble, they returned to the mountain river diagram to continue digesting the medicinal efficacy. Soon, they arrived at the entrance of the passage. But strangely, looking out from the entrance of the passage, it seemed to be a starry sky. And that light came from the starry sky. "Is it really a starry sky outside the passage?" Lu Ming muttered in his heart. After pondering for a while, he stepped out and walked out. The moment Lu Ming stepped out of the passage, he felt the space around him change. The next moment, he found himself in a starry sky. It was a real starry sky. There were stars all around him. He was floating in the starry sky. That is, the next moment, Lu Ming opened his eyes wide in shock. There were two huge creatures in the starry sky in front of him. One of them was a huge goshawk. This goshawk was too huge and majestic. It covered the sky and the sun as if it was bigger than the stars. A pair of huge eyes was looking at Lu Ming. "It's alive." This huge goshawk was actually alive. Opposite the goshawk was a human figure. This human figure was also incomparably huge, like a giant that could support the heavens and earth. However, this figure's appearance could not be seen clearly. It was shrouded in a layer of black light. It was distorted in the starry sky and looked extremely evil. This huge figure seemed to be sizing up Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming discovered that both the goshawk and the gigantic human figure seemed to be injured and severely injured. One of the goshawk's wings was missing. There were many wounds all over its body. Some of the wounds were even bleeding. The huge eyes were bright but seemed a little lifeless. It was a very strange feeling. As for the huge figure, it was not much better. It was missing a leg and there were claw marks on its body. There was even a big hole in its chest. "Ha ha ha, Emperor Song, it seems that you have lost in the end. You have fought against me for 60,000 years. In the end, I am still slightly better. You will be buried here." At this moment, the huge figure laughed. Chapter 1445. Lu Ming's mind was also buzzing. Lu Ming was dumbstruck and in disbelief. Zhangdi? That figure was called Zhangdi. Could it be that the giant eagle in front was Zhangdi? Legend had it that Zhangdi's original form was a goshawk. Song Di was not dead. At this moment, Lu Ming was shocked beyond words. Song Di had disappeared for 60,000 years and was still alive. Now Lu Ming saw it with his own eyes. In that case, the giant figure was obviously a great emperor as well. Soul Extinguisher Shakyamuni. Even if I die, I will drag you down with me. A voice came out of the goshawk's mouth. Ha ha ha, you want to drag me down with you? Dream on. So many people have entered this secret realm, and they're all competing and killing each other. How many vengeful spirits, baleful chi, and soul chi have been produced? I've already recovered a little after absorbing all that soul chi. Even if it's just a little, it's enough to suppress you. In addition, there are some young geniuses who are about to reach here. As long as I devour their flesh and blood, I'll be able to recover a little more. Azure Sovereign, that will be the day you die. Song Di, 60,000 years ago, I have already prepared a tomb for you. Even if you resist stubbornly and resist me for 60,000 years, what's the use? The result has already been decided. Even the heavens are on my side. The giant figure laughed. At this moment, countless thoughts appeared in Lu Ming's mind. Through the conversation between Song Di and the giant figure, Lu Ming's doubts were resolved. According to the outside world, Song Di suddenly disappeared 60,000 years ago and there was no news of him since then. Now it seemed that Song Di had encountered a strong enemy and fought with him. In the end, he had resisted for 60,000 years and had yet to appear. As for Song Di's subordinates, Lu Ming had found many skeletons. Most of them were killed by a strong enemy. This enemy was also a great emperor. He was incomparably strong and fought a shocking battle with Song Di. In the end, both sides were injured. But what shocked Lu Ming was that Song Di and the giant figure were both injured, but they were still fighting. This fight had lasted for 60,000 years. The ability of a great emperor was really unbelievable. But now, the intrusion of Lu Ming and the others seemed to have broken the deadlock. Previously, Lu Ming suddenly raised his eyebrows. Previously, in the stone room where he had obtained the black feather wings, there had been an eagle that had appeared and stopped him from advancing. That eagle should have been formed by the Azure Emperor. The black silhouette that was fighting with the Firmament Emperor should be the giant silhouette in front of him, the Soul Extinguisher King. Song Di didn't want Lu Ming and the others to continue, but the soul-destroying Shakyamuni wanted Lu Ming and the others to continue, because he wanted to refine Lu Ming's flesh and blood. Many thoughts flashed through Lu Ming's mind. At this time, the huge shadow looked at Lu Ming and said in a loud voice, "Why are you alone? All right, I'll refine you first and wait for the others." Finished speaking, an incomparably huge hand grabbed towards Lu Ming. Run! Lu Ming turned around and ran without hesitation. However, that huge hand covered the sky and the sun. It was too huge. Moreover, the aura that it exuded was extremely terrifying. In an instant, Lu Ming felt as though his body was about to explode. The chaotic domain covered his body and vibrated non-stop. Dragon roars could be heard from Lu Ming's body, and there seemed to be 9 dragons emerging from his body. Chaotic domain. It's actually the chaotic domain. The Soul Extinguisher King's voice was filled with shock. Chaotic domain. Such a genius should be killed. The Soul Extinguisher King's voice was filled with killing intent. Don't even think about it. With a long roar, a huge wing swept out, as if it was going to split the starry sky. It struck the huge hand and shattered it. Song Di, you're courting death. The Soul Extinguisher King's body shone brightly and charged towards the Song Di like a deity. The Song Di let out a long roar and engaged in a fierce battle with the Soul Extinguisher King. The scene of the two fighting in the starry sky was too horrifying. The stars were destroyed and the starry sky was shattered. Both Song Di and the Soul Extinguisher King were still far away from Lu Ming. However, the aura of the battle made it hard for Lu Ming to breathe. It was extremely stifling. Great Emperor, this is a great emperor. He's too strong. An emperor is like an ant in front of him. No, even a sage is an ant. Lu Ming muttered to himself and retreated rapidly. There was no door in the starry sky and there was no way out. He couldn't see the passageway that he came from. Lu Ming could only retreat and try his best to stay away from the two great emperors. Little brat, since you're here, your fate is sealed. You'll become my nourishment. The Soul Extinguisher King's voice was heard and a black ray of light shot across the starry sky towards Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming seemed to be frozen and couldn't move at all. Chirp chirp. At this moment, the bubbles appeared. It chirped and waved its claws rapidly. There was a cracking sound in the space around Lu Ming. Lu Ming felt his body relax and he could move again. The black wings flapped. At the same time, the energy of the wind-calming bead in his glabella gushed into Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming retreated frantically. Even if he was facing a great emperor, Lu Ming wouldn't wait for death. Even if the chances of survival were slim, he would fight for it. One of the top 10, the space-time spirit rat, is still alive. All the more you should be killed. The Soul Extinguisher King's killing intent was extremely strong. Don't even think about it. Emperor Song roared and spat out a ray of light that blocked the ray of light that the Soul Extinguisher King shot at Lu Ming. Emperor Song, you can't stop me. Even if I don't kill you today, I'll kill the kid who comprehended the chaotic domain and the space-time spirit rat. The Soul Extinguisher King's voice was filled with endless killing intent. At this moment, at least a dozen rays of black light shot towards Lu Ming. So many. Lu Ming's pupils shrank rapidly. Although Emperor Song and the Soul Extinguisher King were severely injured and had been fighting each other for 60,000 years, they were still terrifying existences to Lu Ming and could easily kill him. Emperor Song roared and flapped his wings. A dozen feathers flew out and blocked the rays of black light like a dozen divine swords. But in the end, the Soul Extinguisher King was stronger. A ray of black light dodged Emperor Song's attack and shot towards Lu Ming. Chirp chirp. Bubbles screamed and spat out a transparent bubble that suddenly appeared in front of him. It shrouded the black light and hoped that it could block it. But when the black light flew past, the transparent bubble shattered. Although Bubbles was a space-time spirit rat and could control space-time, its cultivation was too far away from the opponent and it was useless. The black light continued to shoot towards Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming felt as if the blood in his body had frozen. He couldn't move his body. Am I going to die here? A thought appeared in Lu Ming's mind. The great emperor was too strong. He was the top expert in the world and Lu Ming didn't stand a chance against such an expert. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.